Ever wondered where all the Genshin characters would be ranked in the power scale tier list? We all know Arlecchino is stronger than the Traveler, Amber's weaker than Alhaitham, but has there ever been a tier list done where every single character in Teyvat was ranked in a power scale tier list? I don't think so. That's what we'll be doing today. This is the most accurate Genshin power scale tier list on YouTube. We have over 120 plus characters to rank. This took me over 5 hours to edit, so if you could subscribe, that'd be cool. Okay, enough yapping. Let's start. Cool. All right. So, first things first. The Unknown God. If you don't know who the Unknown God is, it is literally the first enemy or antagonist that we run into in the game. In the opening credits, we can clearly see that they have mastery over cubes and magic. They're very fast as well. They have a lot of power, and they show some power of interdimensional transportation. And they can fly. You know, it's very traditional for anime games and movies and stories and stuff to introduce the final boss or the second to final boss or the main antagonist of the series in the very beginning to showcase like this is the pinnacle, and then everything that happens in between is to show you how far away the main protagonist is from the pinnacle of strength, or the pinnacle of strength that they need to achieve past. It's a very common trope. You see it all the time. You see it in Solo Leveling, you see it in Naruto, you see it in Dragon Ball Z, you see it in everything. So, you know, it's very, very common, in my opinion. After we did the Honkai Impact tier list and I read up on the lore and stuff and, you know, educated myself, this character does remind me of Kiana's Hersher of the Void form. It really does remind me of it. So it makes me think that it possesses the same level of power as that character did, and in the Honkai world, that character or that antagonist is a very strong character and was the main antagonist for majority of the story. So Honkai Impact is the predecessor of Genshin Impact. Like, Honkai Impact came out first, then Genshin. So I am going to make the assumption that they kind of tied in a couple things relating to that with the Genshin story. So we're gonna put this, if you didn't know, all the way to the Celestia tier. I have a very strong feeling that this is probably one of the strongest characters in the entire franchise. We're probably gonna struggle against it. We might team up with our sister and fight them again, or we'll team up with all the friends that we made, who knows. All I know is this is gonna be probably the final boss. And some people say this is Paimon. I mean, we'll see. Next, we have Timmy. I see Timmy as fodder. I think they're weaker than a weak human, and I see them more as fodder. Timmy, you know, doesn't really have anything going for him. He's a child, he's worthless, he cries about his dad all the time. He just stays most of the time on the bridge and complains about birds and stuff, and he's kind of a waste of space. He's also got some issues that he needs to work out. So we're gonna put Timmy in the fodder tier. I did think about putting him in the weak tier, but I think honestly, if I was to compare Timmy to a weak adult character, I think he would still lose. Oh, by the way, when we talk about characters, we're talking about their current state in the game. So as of this recording, we are currently in version 4.8. So all these characters will be judged and critiqued and tier listed based on their strength currently in the current version of the game, which is 4.8. I play as Aether as the main character, so I'm going to treat Aether as the character that we play as the Traveler, and Lumine as the antagonist. Obviously, if you play as Lumine, just imagine Aether as Lumine, vice versa in your mental list. So I personally think Aether is lower Archon tier. The reason I say that, I genuinely think the Traveler is actually really strong despite not really necessarily participating a lot in the major fights. And it's also been a while since we've been in one-on-one combat with a very strong foe. He is in lower Archon tier, mostly because we already have 5 elements regained. And although we haven't seen him use those 5 elements in tandem with each other, when we were in Liyue with only 2 elements, we were already strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Tartaglia, the 11th Harbinger. Like, we were able to best him in a one-on-one. Since Liyue, we have gotten stronger by going to Inazuma. We have learned to harness the power of wishes and be able to convert that into a spirit bomb like sword to deliver a very powerful attack onto Raiden. We have also been shown to go toe to toe, albeit with help of Nahida and also with over 350 plus attempts against Scaramouche, who has ascended into godhood, like Archonhood, like he became a full-fledged Archon. We were able to fight him with experience, but we also possessed enough power to overpower him as long as we were able to dodge his fatal attacks. So I believe currently Aether is the traveler that you play as, is currently in lower Archon tier. He is very surprisingly durable, strong, and he also has protagonist privileges, so he tends to win everything that he ends up partaking in. But we also lost pretty badly to Arlecchino, unfortunately, with the help of the Liyue siblings. So because of that, I can't fathom putting Aether higher than this tier. He's definitely in between these two tiers. Like if you were to judge between the two tiers, I would definitely be leaning towards one of these two tiers. But I'm going to put him in the lower Archon tier. I have faith in our boy, and because, you know, main protagonist privileges, I think he's able to push through when push comes to shove if he is expected to kill an Archon. Next we have Lumine. Like I said, Aether is the main character in our tier list, so Lumine, I believe, is in Sovereign level tier. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Lumine should be Celestia tier because she commands the Abyss. She has the power of the entire Abyss, and she has also gone a journey through all 7 regions and Conria. So she has more power than all of us. However, counterpoint, if Lumine was as strong as the unnamed god, or, you know, achieved Celestia tier, I imagine that she would have already achieved her goals immediately. Because the Abyss are still struggling and fumbling around and they haven't achieved their goals exactly yet, and that the fact that they are struggling against both the Fatui and also our actions, because we're interfering with their plans, I don't think she's Celestia tier yet. I think she will get there eventually, but I don't think she's there yet. I think in due time she will approach that level and probably be stronger than what she was in the beginning of the game, because she will probably have regained her powers, the original powers we had, the powers of light and the 7 elements, which will ascend them to Celestia tier. But as of currently, I think from what we have seen, I think she is Sovereign level. Next we have Paimon. I believe Paimon is fodder. There has been no inklings or showings that Paimon is capable of fighting or being helpful in any way, shape, or form. If anything, she's always kidnapped, or, you know, something bad happens to her, or she just runs away. Pretty confident she would probably lose to Timmy in a 1v1. Next, we have Sealies. So if you didn't know, what I've learned from watching an Ashikai video, where they did a lore video. Basically, the Sealies are the previous residents or citizens of Teyvat prior to Celestia and the Dragon Sovereigns invading and changing the world. They were the previous people that lived in those regions. It seems like they were killed or sacrificed or something happened. I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened, but I believe that these are the remnants or the ghosts of the previous civilization that existed on Teyvat, and as such they don't have a physical form, or I mean they have a physical form, but I don't think they're capable of fighting. They can just float around and just be annoying, kind of like Paimon. Next we have Catherine. I don't think Catherine is actually a weak character. She is a robot, but she has shown no indication of possessing any powers. However, since she is a robot, I do think she is as strong as an average human. You could make the argument that she could be stronger than a human because she is made out of metal, but we don't actually know what the ratio of her components are. She might be half metal, half human. She might be all metal. to just look like a human. She could be like a 90 to 10 ratio of metal to human. She could be maybe even 10% metal and 90% human. We don't really know. We don't exactly know how she is built or what the ratio is of her. So I think it's safe to assume that she is a solid human tier, where she looks like she's capable of taking herself, but I don't think she's necessarily going to go around and fighting like martial artists and stuff like that. Next, we have Jean. Now, Jean is a very interesting character. Obviously, we know that she's the acting grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius. She's devoted to her duties and maintaining peace in Mondstadt. She has shown to be quite strong as being one of the protectors of Mondstadt herself. She did partake in our adventures with Venti and Diluc of fixing the Holy Lyre of the Himmel and rescuing Dvalin from the Abyss's control. So she has shown herself to be strong enough, and she also has shown that she's strong enough to beat most Abyss characters, such as the Abyss Mage, Hilly Charles, various enemies, Ruin Guards, and characters like that. She was trained in all things a knight must know and the qualities they must exhibit. So she's definitely been put through training and probably a fitness program where she probably had to learn and master the way of the swordsmanship, but also achieve a level of physical prowess necessary to be considered a acting grandmaster. I also believe that she was tutored by Diluc when Diluc was a part of the Knights of Favonius. Based on the lore that we've learned about Jean, I'm gonna put her as a strong human. I think she's quite strong as a character, and she's definitely stronger than the average person, but I don't think she is a threat to humanity. I think if she was to go against humanity, I don't think she's got it in her. Okay, next we have Lisa. I actually believe Lisa is actually a threat to humanity. Reason being, I don't think she is superhuman because I don't think she possesses the physical prowess. I don't think her powers and skills are strong enough to warrant being a superhuman. Like, I do think her magic is really strong, but I do believe there's various fighting styles and many different ways to be able to combat her, because she is recognized as one of the most powerful mages in Sumeru's academia. Among the 200 years that the Sumeru Academia has existed, her power over electricity scales with her emotions. So the angrier Lisa gets, the more electricity is discharged into the air, which can knock an Abyss Mage unconscious just from the shock of her powers. And with the combination of her short temper, I think she's more of a threat to humanity. And I think, albeit her physical prowess is not necessarily up to par with Jean, I think how destructive and how much AoE her abilities have offsets the fact that most likely she doesn't possess the physical prowess in order to, go into a high-speed combat. Lisa is one of the Academy's top teachers, and Sage, I think, is her best student in 200 years. So that should already give you an idea of how amazing her accomplishments are. Mind you, one of Cyrus's students is also Cyno. Cyno is a student of Cyrus, and Cyrus is still referring to Lisa as one of the best students that he's ever had in 200 years, with Cyno included. And if she wanted to, I think she could be a huge threat to humanity, or Mondstadt specifically. So you probably don't want to upset her. Also, according to her character story 4, began turning over the referral letters to Lisa directly, but every time Lisa would come up with an excuse to decline the offer. Undoubtedly, the 8th company would have been far stronger under her lead, but she deemed that such a level of power was not only superfluous to requirements, it would also be risky for her in a way that most people could never appreciate. Lisa is quite confident that she could handle any situation she comes up against. However, additional danger means an additional workload, which is something she would never be able to accept. So she clearly possesses the aptitude in order to lead an entire company in the Knights of Favonius, and she has been personally invited by the Grandmaster herself multiple occasions, but she turns them down. With that in mind of her lore, I think Lisa is a threat to humanity tier. Next we have Amber. I know this might seem a little mean considering all the shit Amber has to deal with, but I think Amber is as strong as an average human. I think she can definitely put up a good fight in combat with her speed, her archery, and her skills, but I don't think she possesses the ability to go one-to-one in a brawl with some of these other characters. Like if you were to pin Jean versus Amber, I think Jean will always come out on top. But I definitely do think Amber is stronger than most people. But from the scenarios that we have seen she's in, she has not proved herself to be extremely extraordinary. We haven't really seen her do anything extraordinary. She has taken care of enemies like the raptor that flew away, and she has participated in fights with us, but that's mostly a fight with us while we're able to possibly aggro enemies while she's able to shoot them away or shoot them off from a range. I don't think she's capable of taking care of enemies by herself. That is where I rank her. Hilly Churls. I believe Hilly Churls are about as strong as a human. The reason being is because they're considered your goblins, you know, your generic enemies. I don't believe they're weak, because if they were weak, there's no sense in adventure guilds existing and having commissions where you have to go and kill a bunch of Hilly Churls, and there would be no reason for Amber to go around and take care of them. I think the average human, which most adventurers end up becoming, are capable of taking a Hilly Churl one-on-one. But when you include a group of Hilly Churls, which most of the time they are in a group, it is overwhelming for one average human to take care of, which is why Amber uses tactics and traps and strategy to fight a Hilly Churl. I don't think she'd be able to be capable of fighting one-on-one. Noelle. I personally think Noelle is actually in strong human tier. Reason being, Noelle has, in her lore, she is shown to be very strong and hardworking. She's very tough. She's very durable. One of her main weaknesses is definitely her mental. I believe that she is not necessarily confident in her strength, and she doesn't believe that she has what it takes to be a knight yet, so she's learning. However, I do think she's quite strong. She has a daily training schedule, which already puts her above a human, because I think the average human does the bare minimum to maintain their figure or their strength. I don't think they really push themselves to achieve that next level, which is why I think I would consider Noelle a strong human. Yeah, in her character story 4, Noelle's petite form does a good job of hiding her great strength. Once Lisa accidentally dropped her experimental apparatus under her bookshelf and troubled over whether she could remain decent while bending over to retrieve it. Noelle made it over in the nick of time, lifting the full bookshelf with only one hand, and not a single book fell out between her hefting it and putting it down. So she's capable of lifting an entire bookshelf with one hand, but not only just lifting it, with full control to not wobble the bookshelf, lifting it and dropping it down, as if picking up an empty cardboard box. She has also been shown to be able to fend off pyro slimes by herself, and is able to hurl carts and cargo into Cider Lake when the cargo got on fire. So she's capable of lifting a cart by herself and tossing it into a lake. Character story 4. Noelle won't use her superhuman strength unless the situation calls for it, as she is a pacifist at heart. Okay. So, because the lore itself straight up says she possesses superhuman strength, I'm inclined to believe that she does indeed possess superhuman strength. Hence, we have a superhuman tier, so I underestimated her strength. It seems like in her character stories that she is very durable, very strong, and is able to control her power as well. But she subconsciously locks it, so she doesn't accidentally break or hurt anyone. She's delicate at heart. I think that's pretty solid for Noelle. Okay, next we have Barbara. I would consider Barbara to be a weak human. The reason being, she has not really shown herself to necessarily be combat prowess, I think in her lore as well, she is primarily, she's the deaconess of the Church of Favonius and a prominent idol. I don't see Barbara to be stronger than the average human. Yeah, so I think Barbara is pretty weak. I don't think she's too strong or too powerful as a character. I do think her vision doesn't put her up there, but her vision is primarily healing power. Like lore wise, she's primarily a healer. She doesn't really attack. You know, her gameplay says otherwise, but we're primarily focusing on her lore. When we rank these characters, we're primarily focusing the lore and their strength in the current story arc right now that we're in, which is version 4.8. And in my opinion, I don't think she necessarily possesses or showcases any strength or aptitude in combat. She seems more of a support character that helps heal fatigue or injuries for characters and looks after people. I don't think she possesses anything or has shown anything to my knowledge to show she has any combat prowess. Okay, next we have a Whopper Flower. I think a Whopper Flower is as strong as a human, or is a strong human. Yeah, I think the flower is a strong human because I don't think an average human would be able to take one on, mainly because all of these flowers possess an element, and an average human will not have a vision or resistance or a strength against elements. I think most of them tend to lose to elemental enemies, so I don't think they're capable of taking care of a Whopper Flower. Sucrose. Oh, that is a good question. Where would I rank Sucrose? I kind of want to label Sucrose as a weak human, because from my memory, she's mostly an alchemist and more of a student, not necessarily a combatant. She does frequently travel a lot and explore the world, but I don't think she shows any aptitude in combat. It seems like Sucrose does explore and venture out for materials that she can use for her alchemy, but she doesn't possess any combat capabilities lore-wise. She might be able to use her elemental powers and her vision, of course, to assist in battle, but I think if she was to go toe-to-toe with Amber, I think she would lose, mostly due to her frightful nature. Next, we have Pallid. He's fodder. He's fodder. If you don't know why, there's a very old event during early Genshin where basically in this scene right here, you see he was scared of an enemy and pushed Sucrose into the ground and ran away. So if we consider Sucrose a weak human, Pallid is 100% trash. Fischl. I think Fischl, I want to say Fischl is a weak human. If we consider Oz to be a part of Fischl, I would say human, but we're gonna primarily focus on Fischl by herself. I think Fischl is a weak human. Now, you may say she is an adventurer. She is a part of the Adventurers Guild, and you would be correct. She is a part of the Adventurers Guild because I think she's definitely gone on some adventures with Bennett. Though her unique abilities, eccentric character, and while she may never admit it herself, hard work, Fischl has become a rising star among the Adventurers Guild investigators, earning the recognition of it all. So her role in the Adventurers Guild is an investigator. An investigator's job is to survey and explore and acquire information about an area. But similar to Amber, I think we have to consider her to be a weak human tier. I think Amber has a leg over Fischl because we have seen Amber showcase high levels of mobility, where she has been shown to be quite springy like a bunny and quite fast and possess a lot of agility. So I think Amber would be faster in a foot race and also a race through a forest than Fischl, or various obstacles. Amber has also been heralded as the champion glider of Mondstadt, so she also possesses better flight mechanics than Fischl. So I think overall, I think Amber is just an upgraded version of Fischl, lore-wise. According to her lore, Fischl possesses the ability to see anything and everything that Oz sees. So she effectively possesses clairvoyance through Oz. where she can essentially see what he's seeing and be able to effectively investigate and, you know, do her job in the Adventurers Guild, which is why she's probably super good at her job of exploring, mapping out areas, and getting a rough idea. Next, we have Lieben. Now, Lieben is a fun character. He is a goofball, and he's been shown to be a traveling merchant that appears in all sorts of places. He has been shown to be able to carry what seemingly seems like a heavy piece of article on his body and on his person. He is also a fully grown adult. Can people stop texting me? Oh, so yes. I think he is as strong as an average human. He is a merchant by trade, so I do think he possesses the wit and the smarts to help him navigate through his merchant life. He is also a fully grown adult, which, you know, by standard, I think a fully grown adult will be naturally stronger than a teenager or a child physically, because their bodies are more developed than a child's. So I believe Lieben, although we haven't seen him in combat, I do believe if they were to get into a fist fight with Fischl, Sucrose, or Barbara, I think he would win, mostly because those three characters, without various circumstances, would not be able to throw a punch at Lieben because they would be too scared, or they just wouldn't have it in them. So I believe Lieben would be stronger than those three. Next, we have Mona. So Mona is a very interesting character. In my opinion, I think Mona is actually a strong human. The reason being is because for two main reasons. She was trained by one of the great mages in the world, and she has been shown with her astrology to possess a very clairvoyant and near omniscient knowledge of being able to perceive other characters' strength. For example, in the event where the sky was falling, like the meteor falling event, very early on in Genshin's history, Mona saved our life from a fellow harbinger under the name of Scaramouche from killing us. With a combination of being trained by her master, who seemingly seems to be a very powerful witch herself, combined with her astrology skills and hydromancy, and being able to tell if a person is lying or not and sense their intentions from a single glance, and be able to read people's fate and their traits via their constellations. I think she's actually a strong human, and she will put up a really good fight against a lot of characters in the franchise. She's like a combination of like Lisa and Jean, where like she has a lot of expertise and knowledge and a huge aptitude in magic, but I don't think she possesses the sheer power in comparison to Lisa with her magic. Next, we have Kaya. I'm gonna put Kaya in the superhuman category. So Kaya, I should actually, you know what? I'm going to explain both of them. I think both Kaya and Diluc are superhuman territory. The reason being why they're in superhuman territory is because both of them have been trained together from a young age to be, you know, knights. So they both possess a level of strength. Diluc, on one hand, inherited his dead biological father's delusion, which is the opposite of a vision. It is an artificial vision where it saps away the user's life energy to grant them the power equivalent to a vision, if not stronger than a vision. And Diluc ended up using that delusion again for 3 years. In the meanwhile, Kaya was continuing honing his swordsmanship. He also is a part of the Conria bloodline, if you didn't know. He is also the direct descendant. He is a direct descendant of the creator of the Abyss. So the one who created the Abyss was a Conrian man, and who was very vengeful towards the gods after the destruction of Conria. In Kaya's bloodline, if you were to track down from the family tree, from the creator of the Abyss all the way down, you can connect Kaya to his bloodline. So I think there's a combination of him possessing skills or abilities that could be hidden, and the fact that he's so secretive, and also the fact that he was trained alongside Diluc, and it is very heavily hinted that he is as strong as Diluc, and we have seen Diluc's prowess, that he is really strong, and he is heavily trusted by Jean to take care and clean up any mess that happens in Mondstadt. He's able to solve any intractable problems that is entrusted to him. Basically, if the Abyss is attacking Mondstadt, he would rise up to the occasion and fend off the Abyss. If he needed to go to war against a particular enemy, he'd be able to go to war against an enemy. And it is very shown quite frequently that Jean tends to stay back as the final line of defense, minus the one situation where she came alongside with us, with Diluc, for the Dvalin situation. It has been shown that Kaya tends to be sent out as the cavalry captain over Jean, who tends to stay in Mondstadt and defend the city from within. So I think with the combination of how smart he is, I'm sure that he's also either training or possesses power to rival people that he believes that he needs to at least be equal to in the city that he protects, which would be Diluc. So that's why I believe that Kaya and Diluc are superhuman in power, because Diluc, as we all know, he's been shown to literally 1vx many Abyss mages and enemies. He's been shown to fight off many hilly churls and ruin guards. He was one of the first people to stand up and join us in our combat against Dvalin and the Abyss controlling Dvalin. Similar to Kaya, he's also very smart. He does a lot of research. He doesn't underestimate his opponents, and he also is aware of his strength and is able to accurately gauge the opponent's strength. Despite all that, he's still able to wage war and is one of the single-handed reasons that the Abyss and the Fatui aren't able to set foot easily into Mondstadt, because, you know, Batman himself is able to protect Mondstadt. And since Kaya has been very frequently touted as his equal, if not slightly weaker than him because of the elemental weakness, I see them both in the same tier of strength. They may not possess the same level of raw strength that Noelle possesses, but they make up for it with their powerful elements, their vast experience in combat, their killing intent, and their reasons for being strong. So I believe both of them would be considered in the superhuman tier, where they are single-handedly the reason that threats to humanity aren't coming to Mondstadt and completely decimating an entire city. Okay. Next, we have Fatui members. I believe Fatui members are these are regular Fatui grunt members. I believe these Fatui grunt members are as strong as a human, albeit slightly stronger than a human, but not in the strong human category. I would say they're probably in between these two tiers. Next, we have the Fatui assassin, the Pyro one specifically. I believe this person is a strong human. In a bunch of cutscenes and stories and lore-wise, you typically see this guy as the leader of all the Fatui agents if a Harbinger is not involved. So when you see a typical Fatui soldier, like the Cryo or Hydra one, or the Electro one, they're usually partnered with this guy, and this guy tends to be the human, or sorry, the leader of that group. That is why I'm going to rank the Fatui assassin in the strong human tier. I think he could give a run for his money against all these humans, but I don't think he is a threat to humanity. I don't think he possesses that level of power, at least from what we've seen of him lore-wise and also gameplay-wise. Okay, next we have Andreas, I think, or Borealis, the Wolf Divine Beast. I'm gonna put the Divine Beast, the Wolf guy, in the Divine tier. He is a former familiar of Venti. Yeah. He's the King Wolf of the North Wind, the Lord of Running Wolves. Yeah. So, yeah, I think he is as strong as a familiar, but unfortunately he does seem to not be super strong because he ended up losing, if you don't remember, in the story quest with the Field Teller, Dainsleeve, he ended up losing to an Abyss Herald, him and Razor. They fought together and they lost against an Abyss Herald. Wait, actually, that's right. They lost to an Abyss Herald. I'm going to put this below one tier, actually. I think I'm going to put Andreas in the superhuman tier simply because they lost to an Abyss Herald. I believe in his full peak form, like if he was to have his original powers, I think he would be a divine tier, but he ended up losing to an Abyss Herald, teamed up with Razor. So I think he currently is in a weakened form because he is shown to be a spirit. I don't think he possesses the same level of strength or power as he once possessed in the past. Razor is an interesting character because on paper he should be strong, but I don't actually think he is as strong as some people would say. I think he is roughly around the same level as Jean. I think he is definitely stronger than the average human because he has been trained by wolves and is able to wield a claymore, which is a heavy weapon, and swing it around like it's a normal sword. He also possesses a wolf lightning spirit, but I don't think he possesses the level of destruction Lisa possesses, or I don't think he is capable of fighting off an entire group of abyss mages or abyss enemies or hilly trolls by himself. I think he's able to take on a good chunk of them, but I don't think he's capable of being able to settle things on his own. Next, we have little Benny boy, Bennett. Now, Bennett is a very interesting character. I want to put him in the human tier, but we have seen him in combat. We have seen how quick he is on his feet, and the fact that he is constantly getting in trouble and hurting himself and is able to recover from it makes me believe that he is quite durable and quite strong. He may not possess the same level of power as these other characters up here, but I do think he is quite strong, stronger than the average human. So I think Bennett would be considered a strong human. Okay, next, Pyro Flower. I think the Pyro Registine would be considered a threat to humanity. Okay, next we have Ningguang. Quick update. At this point, we changed up the tier list to add a peak human category and moved threat to humanity above superhuman. She is quite strong and smart, but I think in terms of combat, I don't think she's up here. Like, if I saw her fight against one of these characters, I can see her losing in a one-on-one combat. Yeah. Okay, next we have Moon Carver. I think this one's Moon Carver. They are adepti, and they have been shown to fight alongside with us. They're definitely not stronger than a Harbinger. Divine tier. We don't exactly have anything in Divine tier just yet. Actually, I kind of want to put Kaya down one tier. I think I'm gonna put Kaya down one tier. I do think Diluc has the edge over Kaya, because we have seen Diluc fight more, and Kaya's achievements have been mostly told to us, but we haven't actually seen it. Versus Diluc, we have actually seen him in combat, and he has time to time again been consistent in helping us in combat. So I think he's a little bit more warmed up than Kaya when it comes to combat. Mountain Shaper. They haven't really shown any physical prowess. They have shown a lot of divine power. I'm gonna put Mountain Shaper into the peak human form. I think they're quite strong and they're equal with Ningguang, especially during the Osile fight. When we fought Osile, they partaked with Ningguang and they fought as equals. Neither one of them was able to necessarily stand out in the fight. They merely had to join together. So I think it is implied that Ningguang and the adepti, excluding Xiao, are quite equal in strength. I don't think they are at a level where they are necessarily stronger than those two, Ningguang and Keqing. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy, and that would also make Moon Carver in the same tier as Mountain Shaper. I believe that they both possess the same level of strength. They have a lot of support capabilities and buffs, as we've seen in the Liyue quest and also against the fight against Osile. I think they're quite equal with each other. Madam Ping, I think she is a strong human. I think she is weaker than these two, because they seem to be roughly the same age, but they appear to be much younger than Madam Ping. We haven't actually necessarily seen Madam Ping in combat in her old age. Next, we have Osile. Osile is probably the first god tier. I would definitely say god tier. The reason being is because Child Tartaglia, a Harbinger, made a big deal of summoning Osile, and I think he also hinted towards that he wouldn't be able to stop Osile by himself if he had to at that point in time. In my opinion, I do think Tartaglia has definitely gotten stronger over the course of the story. At the point of time when Osile was shown and killed, I think he was in God tier, where the many divine beasts, including the Traveler at the time, who I believe was around God tier or Harbinger tier, around here, they all had to join forces to be able to take care of this guy. And it has also been said that Osile fought Zhongli during the Archon War before Zhongli ascended into Archonhood. So I believe Osile and Zhongli were roughly around the lower Archon tier, but after being sealed by Zhongli for so long, I believe that his strength was sapped significantly as he lay dormant underneath Liyue and was violently woken up through the talismans that Child and the Fatui had planned to cause havoc in Liyue. So I would label Osile God tier. I do think they're a little bit weaker, but we don't necessarily know because a Harbinger didn't necessarily fight. Actually no, the Traveler fought Osile, and the Traveler was just barely able to best Child. So if Child at that time was a Harbinger level, then it would make sense the Osile was stronger because the Traveler was not able to 1v1 Osile. So I definitely would say Osile is probably God tier, in my opinion. Next we have Beidou. Ooh, so Beidou is a very interesting character. Beidou has been shown and told in her story that she's slain a god, a lesser god. There are those who say she can split mountains and part the sea. Others say she draws lightning through her sword. Some say that even the mightiest of sea beasts are no match for her. For those not from Liyue, it may sound like a hearty joke, but those that have sailed with her will say, no matter what sea beast they may be, Beidou will be sure to split all in two. So according to her friendship level 4, Peer Laborer's Gossip, she faced a 3-headed hydra of unrivaled girth. Beidou hurled forth her greatsword, spinning in the air. It sliced clean through all 3 of the hydra's vertebrae before returning to her waiting hand. And since the day she slew the sea monster Haishin, Beidou has never sung a fisherman's shanty ever again. So she is quite a combat, and this was prior to her acquiring her vision. I think Beidou is quite powerful and could possibly rival Harbingers, who are shown to possess enough power to rival gods. Hence why the Cryo Archon feels comfortable sending Harbingers to various countries, regions, and not worried for their safety, because they are quite capable of taking care of themselves. Now, there's only a few select characters in the Genshin universe that the Harbinger should be aware of, which I'm pretty sure that the Cryo Archon has explained to the Harbingers who to be wary of and who not to piss off. Can be considered Harbinger level, if not sub-god tier, but I don't think she's necessarily a god tier. I don't think she's there. I think she's definitely a Harbinger tier and is able to take care of very easily divine enemies and I think she would fare pretty well against the lower levels of the Harbingers. Not necessarily maybe beat them, but can definitely fare well against them. Okay, next we have the Electro Cube. I think the Electro Cube is similar to the Pyro Regisvine in terms of powers. Keqing, I think Keqing is similar to Jean in terms of strength. I see in a very similar position to Jean, where they both seem to be taught swordsmanship. They both possess power, they're quite fast, do similar things in their respective roles. One is a little bit more stressed than the other, and one is in a country where it's more organized than the other. Next, we have a Ruin Guard. I think a Ruin Guard is as strong as a strong human. It's because we have seen Ruin Guards be taken down single-handedly by multiple characters. I would label the Ruin Guard as roughly in the same tier, if not a little bit higher, but I want to put them in a tier below because I don't really see these characters necessarily combating those characters. And actually, you know what? Looking at this, I'm going to move the Fatui agent down 1 tier as well. I don't really see them as peak humans. I definitely do see them as being really strong, but I don't see them as being peak humans. I think because these guys are definitely afraid of like Jean, Ningguang, and Keqing because they don't try to attack Mondstadt willy-nilly. I mean, obviously they're also scared of Diluc and, you know, the protectors of Liyue. But I don't think they're uber powerful. Like, I definitely can see them running away if any of these characters in these above lists were to get upset and menacingly walk towards the Fatui agent. So yeah. Next we have Xiaoling. Xiangling, I'm gonna actually put her in the human tier. She has shown proficiency in using polearm and martial arts. She's a cook, and she's also an outdoor cook, so I'm pretty confident that she feels comfortable running around and exploring various areas and getting herself into trouble and being able to fight people. But I don't think she possesses a level of strength or explosiveness or a huge repertoire in strength in the human tier. I don't think she's too strong, but I think she's definitely stronger than these three because she tends to find herself traveling a lot, and I believe that she needs a certain level of strength and flexibility of mind and adaptability to be able to survive in these harsh environments. Next, we have Chef Mao. I believe Chef Mao, similar to Lieben, is as strong as Xiangling, but I'm actually gonna put these two down one tier. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna rearrange my tier list a little bit. I'm gonna put Catherine in the weak human tier. I'm gonna put Chef Mao and Lieben in the weak human tier. Although they are fully grown adults, they don't necessarily find themselves in combat all too often to our knowledge. Next we have Chongyun. Chongyun is an exorcist. He is an exorcist. He is also trained in combat, and he comes from a lineage of exorcists, albeit he has never seen a demon by himself because of his being, I don't know if cursed is the right word, but he is plagued with a pure yang spirit, which is like holy energy, which prevents, you know, demons or evil from being around him. They just tend to get exorcised when they're in a certain vicinity of him. So he has a natural ability to drive away evil spirits because of his pure yang spirit. Combine that with his exorcism techniques and martial arts, I can see him being a strong... Actually, I'm going to put him in a strong human. Yeah. I'm going to put Xing Shou in this strong human tier. Similar to Chongyun, they were both trained in martial arts at a young age. You know, the Guhua clan. Xing Shou has been shown to wield martial arts and be knowledgeable about combat, and I think he's fully capable of taking care of himself, especially during his story quest when he got ambushed by people. He was not scared or hesitant in taking care of multiple enemies alongside with a traveler. He is actually quite strong, but he's not super strong. Like, he's not peak human, because I don't believe Xing Shou's intentions is to be the strongest human. I think he just really enjoys reading and spending time with his friends, namely Chongyun. Next on the list, we have Qiqi. I'm honestly gonna put Qiqi in fodder tier. Is that a little mean? Maybe weak human. Qiqi is a little zombie girl. She was a little baby girl that was killed during the Archon War and was brought back from the dead from an adepti known as Xiao. Quiet and kind. She was granted a vision to protect those that she holds dear. Yeah, I'm gonna put her in weak human tier. Similar to Barbara, Qiqi seems to be more of a very passive person who just mainly focuses on healing and protecting those that she loves. Next we have Venti. See, this one's gonna be a fun one. I believe Venti is actually an upper Archon tier. Now, I have a couple reasons why. You may be thinking that Venti is weak considering he lost to Signora, but I think he purposely let himself lose to Signora. I don't think he actually wanted to fight back, because when we look at Venti's feats in the Archon War, he literally reshaped an entire mountain, like an entire mountain area, like just completely cut it off clean from the face of the earth. He literally created the Spiral Abyss area, like he just caused a fucking crater to just spawn in the middle of an island. He has the highest amount of kills in the Archon War. Like he has the highest kill count. Like if this was Call of Duty, he would be ranked number 1 in terms of kills. So he would have an amazing KDA. He is quite powerful under the guise that he's a little goofball. So yeah, I actually do believe he is very strong, and also being one of the oldest Archons, living Archons. Him and Zhongli and A being the 3 oldest Archons that existed around the time of the Conry invasion. He also possesses knowledge and secrets from Conria, which only 2 characters possess, which is Zhongli and him so far that we know, excluding the Fatui. But amongst the Archons, so far, him and Zhongli are the only ones. So there could be something underlying or something that we don't know that those 2 characters are withholding information from. So I think that's pretty crazy. So yeah, Venti easily upper Archon tier. I think if he was to let loose and his job was to kill, I think Venti could just eviscerate everything. I think he would struggle against these 2 characters because I think they're both aware of how strong Venti is. So they would basically prep or, be cautious around him to be able to avoid his surefire kill attacks. Okay, next we have Dvalin. Dvalin's a very interesting character because he is quite strong. He is actually one of the active protectors of Mondstadt, and he also was granted a bit of power from Venti. If at the end of the Dvalin quest, Venti shared some of his powers with Dvalin, so Dvalin could continue protecting Mondstadt if he so chooses. He was granted freedom to allow himself to do whatever. He is quite powerful, and whenever the traveler shares the feats of his accomplishments to people, he does bring up Dvalin, Osile, and a few others amongst his accomplishments, which would make you think that Dvalin and Osile are equal in strength. Dvalin has also fought Durin and was gravely injured in his battle against Durin, which is why the Abyss was able to take over or mind control Dvalin to an extent through his open wound, as they poisoned him with abyssal poison. I think Dvalin was born after Venti, because it says, one day attracted by the music from the holy lyre of Dehemel, he landed next to Barbados, the animal archon of the 7 and the deity of Mondstadt, and it seems like they became friends there. Okay, so it seems like Dvalin was god tier, but then when he fought Durin, he was grievously injured, and it seems like he fell into divine tier and he went to a slumber. Then he was awoken by the Abyss after they constantly poured blood into him to mind control him, and it seems like his strength was hovering around these 2 areas right here. But then we defeated him, so I think he dropped down to threat against humanity. But then Venti restored his power, or granted a little bit of his power to Dvalin as a way of saying thank you and he's sorry, and to amend and to apologize. So I think Dvalin currently is in divine tier. I don't think he's in god tier, so I think he's in divine tier. I'm gonna put Harbingers below divine tier because I think the Abyss Heralds are stronger than the lower Harbingers, like the lower ranking Harbingers. I don't think they have anything against the mid to high Harbinger tiers. Of the lower Harbinger tiers, I'm thinking of like the guy with the big nose, Child, during the early Liyue arc, because I don't think Child would try to fight Dvalin. I think Dvalin should be in divine tier after regaining his power, or regaining a little bit of his power from Venti after they shared each other. Prior to Venti, I think he was a threat to humanity, but he regained some of his power, so I think he's now able to defend Mondstadt. So if a Harbinger was to invade, or if a low number Harbinger was to invade Mondstadt, I think he would be able to fend off the Harbinger until Venti was able to step in and help. Okay, Klee. We have Klee. I believe Klee to be... should I put her in superhuman tier? Threat to humanity. For actual destructive powers, she did level a mountain, if I'm not mistaken. And she is the daughter of Alice, one of the most powerful witches and sorceresses on the planet. Klee has leveled the entire Stormbear Mountains. Okay, yeah, never mind. She is a threat to humanity. Next, we have Alice. So Alice is a very interesting character. If you don't know, Alice, this is not her official art, by the way. This is just some fan art that I found online. If you don't know, Alice is the mother of Cleve, the adopted mother of Albedo. She's a famous adventurer and the founder of the Hexenzirkel, which is like a group of some of the most influential and powerful witches in all of Tibet, known for being very powerful. She's also, one of her titles that she is given is the Goddess of Creation. So if you want to know her story roughly, Alice became acquainted with a Conrian alchemist known as Reiniyal sometime in the past. Reiniyal eventually sent Albedo to her as her apprentice in creation. And yeah, Alice became acquainted with the Yai Miko, referring to Yai Miko as a 500-year-old kitsune, a little girl. Man, she's actually really freaking crazy. If you look at her history, she became acquainted with Zhongli, who is an archon, a god. Yeah, basically she's like super powerful. Yeah, so Alice is really powerful. I honestly want to put her in the upper archon tier based on what little information we know about her, because she's not actually in the game like as a playable character, and we haven't actually seen what she looks like either. But based on her achievements and her feats, I really want to put Alice in the upper archon tier. I think she is very powerful, very influential, and I think she is more capable than she is let on. And it seems that she might have also been around during the Conrian War, and it is heavily hinted that she could potentially be one of the descenders, beings who are not born within Tibet, beings that come from places outside of Tibet. So I definitely think she's easily archon tier. I kind of want to push her in sovereign level, but we really don't know her feats. We know a really good rough idea of how powerful she is, but we don't 100% know if she's as strong as like some of these sovereign level enemies or characters in the story. I kind of want to put her up here, but I'm gonna hold myself back and leave her in the upper archon tier. Next we have Durin, an evil dragon that invaded Mondstadt. Both Dvalin and Durin had fought each other to the death, and both of them, either one could have won. It was a flip of a coin. Dvalin was able to come out barely with a win. He was able to squeak by with the win and be able to defeat Durin. And unfortunately, Durin fell and has become the heart of Dragonspine. Next, we have Yinger or Yennefer. I'm not 100% sure how to say her name, but she's just a very popular NPC that you run into Liyue. She's the perfume lady, and she also develops a love interest with Timaeus, the alchemist in Mondstadt, who is also an apprentice of Albedo and a fellow student with Sucrose. I'm gonna put her in the weak human tier because I mean, she's kind of weak, and I don't think she's a fighter. I think she's just a merchant. So yeah, weak human, just a regular civilian. Next we have Child, Tartaglia, or Ajax, whatever you want to call him. Codename the 11th Fatui Harbinger. Originally I would have put him here. I would put Child in the Harbinger tier list. Our second introduction, to a Harbinger. However, he was the first one that we were able to best in combat. Now, since we were able to best him back in 1.0 during the Liyue arc, he has grown stronger since. He has fought continuously. It has been told to us very frequently that he is slowly getting stronger. Like, for example, his story quest, where we noticed that his delusion was actually a lot stronger. And we're going to include his delusion form, his final calamity delusion form, his full power form, as a part of his character as well. This is not the playable Child. This is the lore Child in the story, where we saw him go toe-to-toe for many months, holding back the narwhal whale and the primordial sea. He is quite powerful since, so I think he's risen the ranks to achieve god tier. I don't think he's lower archon tier. I believe if we were to go toe-to-toe with Child, we would still come out on top, mainly due to protagonist privileges. I think he's definitely has worked really hard and has achieved god tier. I think he is quite powerful, and he can definitely throw some hands against pretty much everyone here on this list underneath him, but I don't think he's anywhere near the archon levels yet. Now we have Child's little brother. He is fodder. However, if anything happens to this guy is literally going to kill everything. everything. He's gonna commit genocide if anything ever happens to his family or to his little baby brother. Next we have Diona. Yeah, I'm gonna put Diona in the fodder tier. I don't think she has anything going for her. I think she's, you know, she's just a typical cat bartender. She's not necessarily an adventurer. She doesn't really do anything. Unfortunately, you are fodder in a combat scene and you would get bodied by literally everyone in this list. Short arm, short reach, you know, you could just kick her in the fucking face and she'll get knocked out. Okay, next we have Zhongli. Arguably, probably one of the stronger archons in the story. He is quite strong. I believe he is also considered upper archon tier, because he himself has slain multiple gods himself. He literally pinned Osial underground and shut him up. When Osial was going crazy, he literally was unfazed, because he knew if the adepti and the Ningguang and her pals weren't able to stop Osial, he would step in, knowing humanity was not ready to move forward without him. So he was ready to throw hands. And when Xiao, Yelan, Yanfei, us, and Ito and Kuki were all trapped in the chasm and we were escaping, he was there to save Xiao from dying, because he knew he could step in whenever and stop everything. He's also taken on Ajdaha like it's nothing. Also one of the oldest archons as well. He might possibly be the oldest archon. We're not 100% sure who's older between him and Venti. I would assume him, because it is low-key implied that he's a little bit older than Venti, but we don't know. Next we have Ajdaha. Ajdaha is a dragon, once again one of the former sovereign level dragons that did exist in the time. However, he was born in a time period after the dragons have lost their privilege due to Celestia's command. So before, he might have been in this state at some point, but due to his weakened form, due to the erosion and the constant mental turmoil he's been through, and the fact that he's just growing old and nearing his death, and the fact that he also split his power in half, one in a good human and one in a bad human, and he was sealed as well temporarily. I think he's actually dropped down significantly from possibly a sovereign dragon level if he had his full power to a divine level, or actually maybe a god level. I think when both of his halves are combined, I think he would be god level. Because the only reason we were able to defeat Ajdaha was because Zhongli was with us lore-wise. We had a little archon, one of the strongest archons, with us, which is why we were able to win and get out unscathed. So I think I'm going to put him in god tier. Despite him being very broken down and not as strong as he was, I think he's still quite strong. And he also participated in the Archon War alongside with Zhongli. He was one of his trusted friends. So he definitely has a huge kill count as well. Xinyan is her name. Rock and rolls her game. I mean, she's strong. She participated in that one event with us and Child, with the puppet guy in Inazuma. So she has combat skills and combat prowess, but I see her as no more stronger than Chongyun. I don't necessarily see her being any stronger than Chongyun. I think Chongyun and her are roughly at the same level. Next we have Albedo. Albedo is a very interesting character. There's a lot of mystery behind him, and he was created by Reiniyal, which, if you don't know, Reiniyal is known as Gold. Is a researcher and one of the 5 sinners of Conria. She's a practitioner of the art of Chemia and is best known for her masterpieces, which are Durin and Albedo. She is also linked to the Cataclysm 500 years ago, which led to the fall of Conria. She is also a member of the Hexen Circle, which is the Witch's Circle, and she's codenamed R. So she's very powerful, and she created Albedo alongside Durin, which makes me believe that Albedo and Durin possess the same level of power. Now, we haven't really seen Albedo utilize this power. It makes me believe that Albedo, was to go berserk and crazy, because if you didn't know, Albedo's a homunculus. He's not a real human. He's a creation. You can say a man-made doll made out of chalk. So he's not human. This was revealed in a very old quest way back when. Because he was created alongside Durin, makes me believe that he does possess the same level of power as Durin. Next, we have Ganyu. I think Ganyu is in the Harbinger tier. I don't think she is necessarily... Well, we know for a fact she is not stronger than Osial. because she had to gather a bunch of people to be able to fight off against, well, actually, no, I think I would put her in threat against humanity. So we know Ganyu is not too strong, but she is definitely as strong as some of the adepti. I'm gonna put Ganyu in the superhuman tier. I think if Ganyu and Diluc were to go against each other, Diluc will come out on top. Not because just their elements are stronger. I don't think Ganyu possesses as much potency as Diluc, because I would consider Shenhe to be stronger than Ganyu. Yeah, I'm gonna put Ganyu in the superhuman tier because she is constantly still improving and taking lessons. For example, Xiao was recently training her in one of the her story quests. And speaking of Xiao, I believe Xiao is a Harbinger level. Some people might disagree with me, but I genuinely believe Xiao is a Harbinger level. He is constantly fighting. He is still fighting to this day. He will continue fighting until he dies. And he's ready to throw hands even against Osial's resurrection. Because there was at some point that Osial was being resurrected. And one of the few adepti who is constantly still in action. Also, he has a really huge kill count in the Archon War. Next we have Hu Tao. I love Hu Tao. I think she's very adorable. Her outfit's really nice. Her personality is amazing. But unfortunately, I think she's just a regular old person. Like, sure, she has the power of going to the afterlife world and helping people cross it. But I don't think she's any stronger than Xiangling or Amber if they were to fight. Okay, next we have Rosaria. I actually think Rosaria is as strong as Jean because she's an assassin. She is a nun, and she is a member of the Church of Favonius. She's a nun, similar to Barbara, but she actually handles the dirty work, the side that a lot of people aren't aware of. She's the one that regularly takes care of Fatui. She runs into Kaya and Diluc on many occasions, and they've developed a friendship as a result. I don't think she is stronger than these superhuman characters. I think she is really strong, but there's a limit to how strong a peak human can get. You would have to be a monster to ascend to superhuman. You would have to possess like very destructive abilities or have a unique trait associated with you to make you stand out. Next we have Yanfei. I think Yanfei is really strong. She is also half adepti and half human. However, she was born after the Archon War. She's quite young in comparison to the other adepti. And as a result, and because she's not really combat oriented, she focuses more on the human aspects, and as a lawyer, I'm going to put her physical prowess down to the average human. I do think she is stronger than the average human a little bit. I will put her in peak human. Yeah. I will put her in peak human because she does have adeptile blood in her. She does have I think she's stronger than the average human, or the stronger human, which is the upper average, but not the top 1%. I think she belongs in the top 1%. Next we have Eula. Eula, genuinely, in my opinion, I think she is as strong equally to Jean. We have seen Eula time and time again be sent out on missions, taking care of enemies, fighting the Fatui, fighting various monsters, helping us fight against Susbeto alongside the help of Amber, Bennett, and the Traveler. And she is quite fast and very focused, and she possesses a keen awareness of everything around her, because she and the Traveler were the only two that were able to react to a falling avalanche on top of them. So yes, she is deserving of her rank, and I think she's quite powerful. I would argue that she is as strong as Jean, if not equal. She might pull ahead a little bit considering she is probably seeing more action on a daily basis in comparison to Jean, but I would consider them equals. Next we have Kazuha. So Kazuha is a very interesting character because he is definitely stronger than the average human. And if we factor in the fact that he was able to wield 2 visions at the same time, one of the few characters in the entire series able to wield 2 different visions, both an Anemo and an Electro, and he was able to fend off Raiden A's surefire kill attack, which was aimed directly towards us to kill us. He was able to deflect that attack. Would argue that he is superhuman. Actually, no, because he was able to fend off a literal Archon's full power attack, albeit he did have a little bit of support. He has the potential to be able to do that. I'm going to put him in the Harbinger tier. I think he's really strong, and if he had to fight against Senora or one of the weaker Harbingers, I think he would be able to hold his own well, if not win. And this is Kazuha at his peak. I don't think he's as strong as when he activated the 2 visions, but he could be stronger. But I'm considering his feat of deflecting A's attack using his full force. Okay, next we have Dying Slave. He is a very interesting character. I actually think Dying Slave is the upper Archon tier. He is constantly seen bad-mouthing the Archons. I think mostly due to part that he's a Conrian, but he's not afraid of the Archons. He was not afraid to badmouth Venti in front of the Church of Barbados. I think Dying Slave is definitely very powerful. I don't think he's as strong as Lumine, because in the most recent quest, 4.7 story quest, which is very cute, I actually enjoyed that quest a lot, he fought against Lumine and he knew he wouldn't be able to win against her. But Lumine was like, it would be a very difficult fight if she wasn't going in with the intention to kill. Like, she had to go in with the intention to kill. So they're quite close to each other, I think, in power. But I think, but Dying Slave himself said that he doesn't think he's stronger than Lumine if they were to fight seriously. So I think that pushes her up 1 tier higher than him. But he is very close to Sovereign level. I think he might achieve that level towards the end of the game, possibly. But we're not too sure right now. Next we have, I don't know how to say his name, but this is the guy in the Liyue commission quest. He is an adepti, where we have to fight a ruined hunter, but we're not able to kill it or do any damage to it. And then he tells us to close our eyes and then takes care of it. I think he is, you know, he's an adepti, so I think he's quite strong, but I don't think he's super strong. I would say he's probably around the level of Ganyu in terms of power. But like he says, he's just an old man that enjoys fishing and nothing more, nothing less. So I don't think he's actively trying to improve or increase his power of destruction. I think he's quite satisfied where he is, which I would consider him to be in the superhuman tier. Next we have Ayaka. Now Ayaka is one of the few characters that constantly trains and tries to strengthen herself and improve on her skills, but I think she's the perfect definition of what a peak human can achieve. I think she's similar to Jean and Eula and all these other characters who train a lot and really put in a lot of effort into improving her craft, but are unable to ascend to the next level because they don't possess that, they don't got that dog in them. She is peak human, where she's really strong, but she just can't ascend to the next level because only a few of those people are able to ascend to the next level. Next we have Yoimiya. I genuinely think Yoimiya is similar to Amber in that regard. We have been in many nefarious situations with her and she has helped us in combat, but she's similar to Amber where she's, you know, a human with average everything, but she makes up for it with tactics skills and her archery skills. So I think she is a perfect slot for the human tier amongst her many feats that we've seen. Teppei, a fan favorite NPC who looks like a generic NPC but won the hearts of many people during the Inazuma quest. At first, Teppei was what I would consider a weak human. You know, some would argue he was fodder, but he acquired a delusion which caused him to gain power, and he, over the course of the story, got more and more used to this power. But if you don't remember, delusions suck the life of the users, so it actually drained his life so much faster. So in the span of a couple months, in-game wise, he went from, you know, a young man possibly in his 20s all the way to an old man with literal white hair, where he was unable to move and just died of old age. So, but his power would exponentially increase as he got older, to the point where he was telling us he was taking care of strong enemies by himself. He was able to achieve things that only platoons of people together were able to take care of. He was doing everything by himself, and as a result, I think he rose the ranks to become a human, a strong human, to peak human. Due to the sacrifice of his own life and for his country, I think he was able to achieve peak human strength at the cost of his own life, and unfortunately met an untimely death. Next we have the Tanuki, their fodder, but I thought they were pretty cute, so I included them. Next we have Sayu. Similar to Amber, I think she possesses a similar role for the Inazuma army, specifically for the Ayato clan. She's a ninja who focuses on stealthy missions, not necessarily combat, and as a result she's a good investigator similar to Fischl, but I think she's as strong as a normal human can be. but I do think she does have the edge a little bit because she is a ninja, but I don't think her main priority is to combat. I think she's taught the basics, or you know, the intermediate skills of combat in order to protect herself, but not enough to necessarily warrant facing off against master martial artists or people who train every day of their life. Next we have the serpent god that Raiden slain. And if you can see from that one island in Inazuma with a huge slice through it, that is the aftermath of the battle between A and this beast. This was considered a god and a very powerful beast, especially when we see the remnants of his body drastically affecting the lands of Inazuma with constant rain and thunder. So he was quite powerful, but I think I would put him in god tier. I think he was as strong as a god, but unfortunately when you face off against an upper archon, which if you were wondering where Raiden A would be, this is A, not Raiden Shogun, not the puppet, actual A, the one that's lived for as long as Zhongli and Venti has. She's upper archon tier easily. She's quite powerful. She was the one in charge while Makoto was alive, her twin, to be the sword. Her job was to be in charge of taking care of that. A, to no one's surprise, is a part of the upper archon tier. She's quite powerful, and as you can see the tier disparity, it makes sense for A to be able to slay the serpent god, which would put him in the god tier. He was quite powerful himself, but obviously A reigns above. It's been 3 hours and there's barely 10 characters. Yeah, I mean, we did a fair decent amount, but I'm definitely gonna I need to pick up the pace for sure. Next is Sara. She's a general of the Watatsumi. She is a general for the Bakufuku, which is the army that Raiden Shogun has for Inazuma, the equivalent of Millelith or the Knights of Favonius. So she's definitely strong. I don't think she's superhuman because she definitely gets bodied by a lot of people, but she's definitely stronger than the average person. I would put her on par with Jean, and I think she would do as well as Jean or Ningguang would in their situations. Okay, next we have Senora. Ooh, our first well, technically our second harbinger, but yes, a very interesting character. I do think Senora is very strong. She did get very easily defeated, literally one-shotted by Raiden Shogun. We did end up actually beating her after our fight with Child, which is like I said, I think the Traveler was around Harbinger tier, and then I think they ascended to Divine tier when they got the training from Yae Miko and also the Electro element imbued into us. So I would argue that Senora is in the lower spectrum of the Harbinger tier. I don't think she's too strong. Well, she's also dead, so she can't get any stronger, but I don't think she was any weak. She's actually one of the older members of the Fatui. She was one of the first few members of the Fatui, but unfortunately, as they got more and more Fatui members to join their ranks, they all overshadowed her, or a lot of them ended up overshadowing her. So I think she's a Harbinger level. I don't think she could fight Dvalin or Durin or Albedo if they were to go for a death brawl, but I think she would put up a good fight. But unfortunately, I don't think she can win against them, which is probably why she didn't attack Mondstadt while Dvalin was going crazy. She was waiting for Dvalin to calm down before she can infiltrate and go after Venti's Gnosis. I think that's purposely why we didn't hear anything about her, and she showed up at the very end, surprising all of us. Next, we have the Pinocchio gnome-looking elf Fatui Harbinger, which I don't remember his name. From what I've read and the various theories that I've read about him, he doesn't seem to be a part of the Fatui for his combat prowess. He is mostly there because he's literally the walking bank for the Fatui members. So I don't think he is necessarily as strong as Senora, who is seems to be more combat oriented. I think he is one tier slightly above a Harbinger. Like he would be like right here, in between Harbinger and a threat to humanity, but I'm gonna put him down here because I genuinely think Diluc could probably go toe-to-toe to him and squeak out a win against him. It's kind of funny seeing Klee alongside him, but I genuinely think if he was caught off guard with one of Klee's exploding bombs that could level an entire mountain, I genuinely think he would die. similar to Goku getting shot by a laser and nearly dying when he was caught off guard. Okay, next we have Pantalones. I don't know if if that's how you say his name, but I saw a meme and that's what I've been calling him. So Pantalones. I think he's as strong as Senora. We don't actually know too much, but from what I have read, he is, in terms of numbers, he is closer to Senora in terms of rank, but I don't think rank is assigned based on power. I think it's assigned based on influence in Fatui, or what you can offer to the organization, whether if it's power, influence, money, knowledge, etc. So, or research in Doctor's case. So I would put him in the same tier as Senora. I think he's quite powerful, but I don't think he is any stronger than any of the other Fatui members. This is where I would feel very comfortable placing him in. Ooh, this character, this Fatui member has acquired a very big fan base with her singing in the Fatui trailer. If I'm not mistaken, she is ranked number 3 in the Fatui Harbinger tier list. So if you don't remember, what Nahida said was the Fatui members 4 and above are as strong as Archons, but then 3 and above are above Archons. So I would consider like those guys to be upper Archon tier. I would consider them to be quite powerful, to say the least, genuinely. So I'm gonna actually put her in upper Archon tier. I think she's quite powerful, and she's going to be a very scary character when you run into her, considering we were not able to beat Arlecchino. Actually, I actually do think Arlecchino is weaker than her. Actually, now that I think about it, I might put Aether in God tier. Yeah, okay, never mind. We're going to change this a little bit. After thinking about it a little bit, I'm gonna move her down to upper Archon tier, because I do have a couple characters in mind that I feel like would be in Sovereign level but not Celestia level. I think she is in upper Archon tier, and I think Aether is God tier. I think they're as strong as Child. If they were to go toe to toe, I think it would be quite an even fight. We might squeak out a win, mainly because we're the main character, but it would definitely be a close fight. I don't think we're that much stronger than Child. Next we have this Harbinger. And genuinely, not much is really known about this Harbinger. I mean, I guess most of them we don't necessarily know. But from what I have seen, I would put her in the Harbinger tier, like the lower Harbinger tier. I do think she's still stronger than the bank guy, but I think part of the lower echelon of the Harbingers, alongside with Pantalones and Senora. I think she's among those tier. Then we have Doctor, which he made me reconsider Aether in the tier list. I genuinely believe the Doctor is Sovereign level. I think the Doctor is just as strong as Lumine. I don't think he's Celestia, but I think he's really close. He is ranked number 2 in the Fatui. Like, he's very strong. I think he's really close there. I think he is capable of getting there with a few more experiments, but it will definitely take time for him to get there. And he's been shown to strike fear in so many characters. And he's been shown to influence and manipulate so many characters, like Scaramouche, Nahida, in Mondstadt. Like, he's literally been everywhere. He's actually a menace to society. Then we have Piero, which some people say he's ranked number 1 in the Fatui. Some people say he's ranked number 0. He's above ranked number 1 because he's the leader of all the Fatui. Either way, I genuinely believe he is as strong as a Celestia being, a being from Celestia. Genuinely. I think he is just as strong. There's not much known about him. I think there's a reason why he's ranked number 1 or 0. For a very specific reason. Capitano, a very fan favorite amongst people. I actually believe Capitano is the same rank in terms of power as Dottore, the Doctor, because from what we have seen and heard of him, and also he's going to play a huge part in Natlan during version 5.0, I think he's actually a menace. Like, I could see him, if Piero ends up being ranked number 0, I can see him being ranked number 1. And if he is ranked number 1, a lot of crazy things are going to happen in Natlan. There's literal war and bloodbath might happen in Natlan. So genuinely, I think he's really strong. And on that note, after this very powerful scale of characters, we got Kokomi, which, you know, she's all right. I don't think she's really strong. I think she is as strong as Ningguang and Jean are. She's more of a tactician. She's very smart. She's a good military might. But in terms of combat prowess, we don't really see anything. I mean, if we have to go off of her kit because we know so little, she's more of a supporter. But I do think she is capable of fighting well because she did single-handedly make an army in Watatsumi Island to fight against the Bakufu, and they were actually doing a pretty good job. So she definitely has to have something that allows her to combat, you know, Kujo Sara and be able to hold her against her if they're going to be considered in the same tier. Next we have Aloy. I don't know much about Aloy, to be honest, because I know she's from Horizon Zero Dawn. It's an action role-playing game in a world overrun by machines. Okay, so it's the post-apocalyptic time era. She uses medieval style weapons, using spears, stealth, ranged weapons, bows and arrows and stuff. Okay, so it's like very Zelda oriented, Breath of the Wild oriented. Okay, so I'm gonna base her strength based off of how I would base Link if he was in this universe, not without the Master Sword or the Triforce. So just a normal human. I would put Aloy in the strong human category in that case. Okay, next we have Toma. So Toma, I do think he's decent. I don't think he's that strong because it doesn't seem that his role in the Ayato family to be for combat oriented. It's more of an information broker. I'm gonna put him in the strong human category. I think he's definitely a training partner for Ayaka, but I don't think he's stronger than Ayaka. I think Ayaka is one of those like really talented, or just very talented at the sword. It also helps that she has a brother that is also quite talented in combat. Maybe not as much as Ayaka, but just as strong, if not just slightly weaker. Next we have that Kitsune lady during that one world quest in Inazuma where you have to go around and break these sakura trees and kill a bunch of samurai. And then you eventually remove a plague underground, and then she ends up disappearing, which was very sad. A also fan favorite character. Because she's a spectral ghost at the time, I'm going to consider her a weak human. She was not able to take care of the enemies, and she sought help for many, many years until she ran into the Traveler, which was able to help her out with her inconvenience. So I'm going to put her in the weak category. Okay, next we have Ito. I think Ito, in terms of combat prowess, I think Kujo-Sara is stronger than him. In terms of tactics, I do think Ito did get jumped by Kujo-Sara's soldiers alongside with Kujo-Sara, so he lost due to numbers. But if it was a one-on-one, after reevaluating, apologies Ito fans if you enjoyed Ito, I think he's superhuman. He's capable of smashing boulders with his fist. He is part Oni, so who knows how strong he can be. He ripped in a space continuum hole in the chasm after burning his entire strength. Albeit not as strong as Shao, he is quite strong for who he is. So I'm gonna put him in the superhuman category. Next we have Goro, which, you know, he's a general of the Watatsumi Island. I'm gonna say he's peak human. I don't think he's super strong, but I think he's equal in terms of Kujo-Sara. So wherever Kujo-Sara ends up being, I think he is considered her equal in terms of strength and in terms of tactics, because he single-handedly was able to withstand the Bakufu from invading Watatsumi for a bit until they got overwhelmed and Kokomi had to step in with some reinforcements. But he is a general himself, so I do believe he is quite strong, and I'm pretty sure he is constantly training and taking care of himself to be at his peak, so he can take care of his soldiers because they were constantly at war. Next we have Rue. If you did the Sumeru Islands, you would know him. He's a little kid that, you know, is he has quite a depressing story. You know, not a lot of people like him because the quest was very boring and very long and tedious, but, you know, he was a very memorable character. I'm gonna consider him fodder because he is a literal spirit and ghost, but I thought I'd include him because he's an interesting character regardless. Next we have the Thunderbird, which was also slain by Raiden A, and I'm gonna put it in the divine tier. I think it played a similar role as Andreas, the wolf spirit in Mondstadt, and also Dvalin in Mondstadt. I think it played a similar role to those characters, but for Inazuma. But it was more of the evil version. It was like more of a Durin. Its death caused a manifestation of the Thunderbird to spawn, and also a constant swirling vortex in the Seirai Islands. It heavily impacts the land, similar to the Dragon Spine mountain that is spawned on top of Durin's remains. I think the Thunderbird is similar to Durin in that case, so I would consider them both in the similar category. Especially if I also remember that Dvalin created the Storm Terror layer, you know, the giant tower surrounded by a literal storm, and it's nicknamed Storm Terror's Lair. I think these three are very easily categorized into the same category, which is the divine tier, because after their death they heavily impacted a landmass for many centuries. Next we have Shenhe. So Shenhe I would actually consider a superhuman, similar to Ganyu. They were both trained by the same person. However, Shenhe is a normal human, however was born with a curse and unable to control her emotions. So as a result, she has binded her emotions, which in turn controls her strength with a red rope. However, we have seen her lose her cool when Osial's wife came back to life and nearly killed the traveler, or at least blasted him into a mountain, and it pissed her off, where she got upset and literally stepped on an ocean and froze the entire ocean and Osial, and then chased after her. Pretty badass, if you say so myself. And honestly, after saying that out loud, I'm gonna put her in the threat to humanity tier. Actually, she is capable of lifting a huge chunk of a mountain boulder and carry it all the way from the mountains of Liyue back to the city of Liyue without getting that tired. She's very strong. She has a lot of stamina, and her cryo powers are literally crazy. She froze an ocean. Like, that is no easy feat. And she was literally going toe to toe with a literal god. Albeit, I do think Osial's wife was weaker than Osial himself. However, I mean, it's still a human going against a god. Actually, you know what? Even after saying that, I'm gonna move her into Harbinger tier. I think she's as strong as Beidou. I think Beidou and Shenhe are equal in strength. Yep, I will stand by that. Okay, cool. Next we have Yuanjin. I'm gonna put her on weak human. She's an opera singer. Like, she's not really a combat artist. Like, she knows combat and basic martial arts, but I don't think she's too crazy. Next we have Yae Miko. So this is an interesting one, because I used to consider Yae Miko and Xiao to be equal in strength, because they play both a similar role in their respective regions. But at the same time, I do think Yae Miko might be as strong as Albedo, because with the implications that were told to us, she is quite strong, but she likes manipulating and gaslighting people to do things for her. But it seems like if she needed to step in, she'd be able to, which makes me think she does harbor strong power to be able to push away Harbingers if they threatened Inazuma, but she sees no need to be able to. So I would put Yae Miko in the same tier as these other characters, as Dvalin, Durin, Albedo, and the Thunderbird, because they all kind of seem quite influential in their respective areas. Next we have Enjo, or the fire pyro liberator, the abyss guy, the librarian guy. He was really cool. He was very nice. However, he was a bad guy. Well, bad guy with an asterisk. He did semi-betray us, but he had a pretty good reason in his story quest. I do think the Abyss Heralds in general are all Harbinger level, if not divine level. I think they're in between them, somewhere here in between these two. I think Enjo specifically would be in the divine tier. I think he's quite powerful and quite scary. However, the Traveler at this point has achieved God tier, and has pretty much remained in God tier. He hasn't really improved too much. I think God tier. Never mind. I'm going to stick with my gut. I think the Traveler right now is in God tier. And I think this guy is Harbinger tier. I think he's Harbinger tier. I think the Abyss Heralds, because they're not part of the Fatui, they're part of the Abyss. I think these guys are made to combat the Harbingers and to be able to give them a good fight, a good run for the money. But I think Enjo specifically is in Divine tier, but I think the other Heralds are in Harbinger tier. And honestly, let me actually just get another Herald. There we go, chat. We have gotten another Herald, which I will put right here. Next we have Ayato. I think he's in the same tier as Ayaka. I think he's slightly weaker than Ayaka, but I don't think there's a huge difference enough to literally drop him an entire tier. I think he is peak human strength as well, and he's just slightly weaker than Ayaka, because I believe Ayaka has trained more than Ayato, while Ayato focused more on running the commission from the behind the scenes, while Ayaka focused on honing on her skills because she didn't have to necessarily worry about the back end Yashiro commission. She can focus on the front end and can mostly delegate the tasks to Toma to handle, so she can focus on herself. So that's what I believe. Yelan, I think Yelan is quite strong, and from what we have seen from the Chasm quest, I'm gonna put her in peak human. She is clearly weaker than Xiao because that's the whole quest line in the Chasm. She was constantly being shown to be... She has constantly been shown to have to rely on Xiao, and they had to work together because she wasn't able to do it by herself, which frustrated her. And I don't think she was capable of tearing a hole in the abyss, because I don't think she possessed the raw strength that Ito possesses to be able to do that. But she is quite strong herself, constantly going after Fatui, taking dangerous jobs, working directly under Ningguang. So I think she is Ningguang's equal in terms of strength. Next we have Uncle Chin, which is an uncle to Yelan. He was a former member of the Ningguang, the Qianxing. He's a cool dude. Unfortunately, he's gotten really old, so he's unfortunately a very frail old man. Next, we have Kuki Shinobu. I think she's just a regular human. She does possess Kunoichi skills and ninja skills, but primarily she went to school, specifically in law. Her senpai is Yanfei, so they are, friends with each other and knowledgeable, and they know about each other and stuff like that. But she's typically handling the job and making money for the Arataki gang, so they're able to continue being goofballs and idiots while she is the sugar mama who helps put food on their plate and allows them to be goofballs. So a literal sugar mama, and we love her, but unfortunately she is just your average Joe. Next we have Heisho, which I actually think Heisho is a strong human. He's a detective, he goes around beating up people, so he has to be stronger than the average human. I don't think he's peak human, because I definitely do think he can get stronger, but he, mostly due to his job occupation, is exposed to a lot of combat, so I think over time he will get stronger and reach peak human. I imagine him to be as strong and influential as Yelan is in terms of the detective work, because they kind of do the same thing. They're both detectives, they both handle things secretly. Next we have a general NPC from Sumeru, a scholar. I just wanted to put, some, unique characters that may not be in a lot of people's tier list. So here's an example of a typical NPC that you would see in the game, just a traditional scholar who really doesn't do anything in terms of power skills. He'll probably just bore you to death with knowledge, maybe throw a textbook at you, which would hurt. So it would kill Paimon if she got hit with a textbook with full force. Next we have Tanari. Tanari is surprisingly actually strong, like stronger than we give him credit for. He did help fight off against the Fatui, which would, in my opinion, put him in the strong human tier. He has helped us fight the Fatui. He literally got shocked by lightning caused by Scaramouche's, Archon machine thing. They literally tanked it. It did paralyze him for the rest of the story, unfortunately, but he was able to recover, and he has been shown to fight with us alongside Senno during Sethos's story quest, which was really cool actually, or Senno's second story quest, but you meet Sethos, so I call it Sethos's story quest. But yeah, he has been shown to have some physical prowess. I don't think he's super strong, especially compared to the Traveler or Senno, but he is definitely stronger than the average human for sure. Next we have Kole. Kole is adorable. I do think Kole is actually stronger than Amber because mainly due to the Genshin manga, Kole possessed a curse at one point and actually killed people. So she is a murderer, but there was a lot of circumstances that caused her to have to do that. So I do think she is a bit stronger and is willing to defeat her opponent more so than Amber. So if there was a tier between strong human and human, I would put her there, but we don't have that tier, so I'm gonna put her in this tier. I do think Tighnari is stronger than Kole, but I don't think Tighnari is peak human. Actually, looking at this list, I changed my mind. I'm gonna put Tighnari in the peak human category. I do think actually Tighnari is stronger than most of these characters. Yeah, I do think Tighnari is stronger than most of these characters because also it makes sense because Senno would probably train with Tighnari because they're best friends, and Senno is very strong, especially when he recovers his full power. Next we have an Emerite. I think these Emerites are strong humans. When you're traveling in Sumeru, you need to be careful of these guys because they can attack you and mug you for everything, you know. So an average human, if you were to run into these guys, you probably want to run away or call for help. So yeah, I think these guys are strong humans, but they're not too terribly strong. And actually, after thinking about it, Kole was bedridden for a very long time. So I think actually her killing prowess might have degraded over time because she was so bedridden for a very long time until her curse was healed. But I don't think somebody who is bedridden for, or you know, very ill and weak and wasn't able to do much for a very long time of their life would get any stronger after a couple months of being recovered. So actually, I'm gonna change my mind again. Once again, bring her down to human tier. Next, we have Dory. I think Dory is a weak human because I think she's mainly a merchant. I don't think she's in the business for anything else. If there was a fight, I think she would be the first person to run away. I don't think she would ever want to get involved with anything directly. So as a result, I think she is a part of the weak human category. I do want to put her in fodder. I don't think she's exactly fodder. Okay, next we have Senno, which prior to his second story quest, I would put him in superhuman tier. But after we learned that he has a literal god inside of him, I'm very tempted to put him in the same tier as Xiao and Kazuha. Kazuha at his peak, and Beidou. I think him and Beidou are actually quite close in strength, more so than they let on. I genuinely think they're quite strong because Beidou has been shown to slay sea beasts and a god. Kazuha was able to deflect one of the archons. Xiao is a literal creation from a god. Shenhe was trained to be really strong and was able to go toe-to-toe with a pseudo god. And these guys are harbingers and heralds, so you know they're meant to be intimidating and scary and strong. So I genuinely believe Senno is either between harbinger or divine tier. Like, I can see the argument of you saying he's in divine tier after he achieves his full power, which actually, you know what, honestly, the boy deserves it. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna put Senno in the divine tier after he had acquired all of his strength back. I think he's a divine tier. I'll give him credit. I do think he's like in between them, but we'll give the boy some credit. Next we have Candace. I think Candace is strong. I don't think she is superhuman, but she has been shown to be quite strong and was able to protect her village for the most part. And she did strike fear into Senno, Alhaitham, and Dea. So I don't think she's as strong as them per se, but I do think she's relatively close enough to them when they're not fighting super serious. Next we have Jet, a very popular NPC, a huge fan favorite, and one of the few NPCs to get official fan art on the official Genshin account. She has a very tragic backstory. She's been through a lot. She's grown a lot. She's improved a lot. Genuinely, I think she's peak human. Like, she's been through a lot mentally, emotionally, and physically. She's seen lots of fights and battles. She was with us through thick and thin, through the story. I think she's grown a lot as a character, and as a result, she has achieved the peak strength of what a normal human being is capable of. Next, we have Nilou. I don't think she's capable of fighting. Like, all these other characters, I think if they had to fight, they would be capable of fighting, but lore-wise, she's a dancer. I don't think she's capable of anything more. She could be a fighter. I haven't done the 4.8 summer event yet, so maybe we might see that she's capable of fighting and getting into a scrap. But unfortunately, at the time of this recording, I have not done the summer event yet, so I have no clue. Next, we have Nahida. The little baby. Unfortunately, Nahida is a literal baby. She is not fully developed into an Archon yet, stated multiple times throughout her entire story quest. I do think she's quite powerful in terms of the defensive and supportive field, but in terms of offensive power, I don't actually think she provides a lot. However, she is capable of taking over Sumeru people's minds and stuff, so she could in theory create an army to fight on her behalf, which does make me think she would at least be divine tier, if not harbinger tier. I feel like she would do pretty well against most of the lower tier harbingers, but anything that is slightly above Senora or is Senora level or above, she will struggle. It will be a 50-50. I can see her struggling against any of these characters if they were to go after her neck. Unfortunately, she's a little baby. She's nowhere near her fellow Archons yet, but maybe give her a couple million centuries and she might catch up. Next, we have the little Aranara. These guys are little cuties. Unfortunately, they are fodder. As adorable as they are, and as much as they remind me of Koroks, they're babies. They can't really do much. Next, we have Layla. She's mostly a scholar. She did fight in the event with Hat Guy and Kabe. So she has been shown to hold herself. But I think she's similar to Fischl, where she can fight but would prefer not to and will think of ways to get around. She's more of a defensive supporting character, so I would label her more as the weak human character. I don't think she would actively go out of her way to necessarily put herself out there. Next, we have Wanderer. So I actually think Wanderer, in my opinion, is as strong as Scaramouche when he was the 7th Harbinger in the Fatui. So, and if you remember, Scaramouche struck fear in Yaimiko to the point where she had to bargain for him to leave. In return, he would receive the Electronosis. So I do believe that Scaramouche is actually stronger than Yaimiko, or Wanderers, sorry, in this case, is stronger than Yaimiko. And also, it is also implied that Wanderer is now working alongside with Nahida in Sumeru, and Wanderer is stronger than Nahida, hence why he is primarily her bodyguard. In my opinion, I think it makes sense that Wanderer would be stronger than Nahida and slightly stronger than Senno. I think Senno would have a really good chance against him, but I think Wanderer will come out more on top than Senno. I think Senno is approaching it, especially with the two halves combined for his electric god. Next, we have Scaramouche's machine when he achieved Archonhood. So I actually believe this is our first ever lower Archon tier character. This machine that Scaramouche has created after combining with the Electronosis, I believe was his full strength. I think this was at his strongest, and it took the Traveler 350 something attempts to be able to finally beat him. After learning and resetting the memory multiple times, I think it took him a very long time to finally be able to beat it with a caveat. So I do think it's really strong, but I don't think it was at upper Archon tier just yet. I think if it was allowed to live for a couple hundred years, it could achieve that level of strength because it would get used to the new form and fully unlock the full potential of his power, possibly grow even stronger. But unfortunately, he was stopped too soon before he was able to learn, adapt, and improve. So lower Archon tier, still strong, but lower. Next, we have Faruzan. So I actually think Faruzan is a strong human. I don't think she's actually anything too crazy. Actually, no. I'm gonna put her in human. Most of her trickery and her mechanics and her strength comes in her machinery, similar to the mechanics of Amber, I don't think she possesses a strong physique to be able, like, I don't think she's fast. I don't think she's super strong. I don't think she's quick on her feet. I don't think she possesses the agility. I think she's just an average person that is strong because of the machinery and the tinkery that she has, but she's not able to utilize her body to maximize her strength using those machines. And especially we saw during the Hat Guy event as well, where her little machine went haywire and she was unable to do anything. She just kind of sat around and just was like, oh no. And yeah. Next we have Alhaitham. Alhaitham is a very surprising character. I genuinely believe he's actually one of the few stronger characters in the franchise, but chooses to hide the fact that he's quite strong. I think he's a peak human. I don't think he's anything too crazy. I think if him and Senna were to fight each other, Senna would win in a serious combat. But to be fair, Senna is the Mahatmatra, so it makes sense. But I do think Alhaitham is quite strong. Unfortunately, he's not a threat to humanity or anything of the sorts, but he is as strong as he possibly can be, and I don't think he has any interest in getting any stronger. Next, we have the Wee Nut, which, you know, is an enemy. It's pretty strong. It is quite feared in Sumeru. When you literally go through Wee Nut, there's like a lot of warnings, and there's a lot of characters that are constantly saying like, be careful of the Wee Nut. You know, you could get killed or whatever, but they do tend to farm and kill the Wee Nut, as a future character known as a Pep. His later comments on how far the Wee Nut has fallen to be hunted for skin and materials by humans instead of being feared by them. So it seems like the Wee Nuts were at one point maybe divine tier, maybe harbinger level, but over time they have grown weaker and as a result are being hunted by humans. So although humans do fear them, they can kill them if enough of them group up together and tactically attack them, which makes sense. Next we have Yao Yao. I think, you know, little baby. I think unfortunately they are fodder, mostly for the same reason these little guys are. I think over time she will possibly get stronger. Maybe not as strong as Shenhe, but you know, a couple tiers below Shenhe. So, you know, when she grows up, I think she'll get stronger. But as of right now, I see her as mainly fodder, maybe support. And the reason why I do consider Chi-Chi above her, because you would maybe consider them the same tier, is because Chi-Chi is a zombie, so, and can be ordered to attack and fight, while I think Yao Yao would heavily hesitate and not do that, and wouldn't have the strength behind her little arms to even be able to do that. Next we have Dunyarzad, which also I think is fodder as well. She was bedridden, sick. I think she's also a pacifist. I don't see her capable of getting into any fights at all. I think she would just die. Next we have Dehya, a literal assassin. In my opinion, I think Dehya is peak human. I think she is just as strong as Candace. I think they're on the same level. And I think they also mutually respect each other as well. And seeing Dehya with Alhaitham and Candace all in the same tier makes sense to me. I think they're all equally strong and they all do have certain strengths to them. But unfortunately, in comparison to the Mahamatra, who literally has a god's power with it residing in him, I don't think they come close. Next we have Mika. You would think Mika is a weak human based on his looks and his personality, but I genuinely think he's as strong as a normal human. I think he's as strong as Amber would be, because he is still a Knights of Favonius member and his job is to go around and explore and survey the land. Now you may say Fischl does the same thing as well, because that's her role in the Adventurers Guild. However, in my opinion, I think Mika goes on more regular expeditions than Fischl. Fischl goes based on commissions that the Adventurers Guild receives, while Mika goes regardless, because that is his job in the Knights of Favonius. So I believe Mika is one tier above Fischl in that aspect, and also the fact that Mika uses multiple weapons. Like, he is knowledgeable about the crossbow, the spear, and one other weapon that I can't remember, but he is capable of using a couple weapons, and he has mastery of those weapons versus Fischl, which can barely shoot a bow and arrow without Oz. So yeah. Next we have Baizhu. I think Baizhu is a strong human. Based on the trailer that we saw, he was able to take out a couple bandits that were trying to steal something. So it does look like he has knowledge of martial arts, but I don't think he's necessarily seen or involved in combat too much. I think he primarily focuses as a doctor and has basic levels of combat. I don't see him actually partaking in big, giant, glorious fights and battles to the death. I think he would be more in the back line taking care of people and just, you know, if fodder was to run at him, like, you know, basic hilly trolls and stuff, I think he would be capable of being able to subdue them and prevent them from attacking his patients. Next we have Kaveh. Kaveh is a very interesting character because he did technically win the competition, the Hat Guy competition, I think in 3.8. I don't remember which version that event was, but he did end up winning it technically, beating Hat Guy, which is Wanderer. If you actually were to review his footage, he didn't actually necessarily do anything the entire event, he just kind of got by. So his combat prowess is kind of unknown at the moment, but based on his personality and how unknown his combat system is, and it seems like he relies more on his briefcase gadget, similar to Faruzan, I think he would be in the same tier as Faruzan. Next we have Caterpillar, which was a very popular NPC in the Fontaine story arc. He's really cool, and it was very surprising when you find out his real form. He's actually a hilly churl that can shapeshift into a human, but he was a human because he was raising a little girl while in prison. So yeah, he was pretty cool. He helped fight with the Traveler. I think he's as strong as a human, or he's a strong human. I think he's slightly stronger than a hilly troll, but I don't think he's any higher than that. I think he's a strong human, but I don't think he's any stronger than a strong human. I think he's, you know, yeah, I think this is a pretty good solid place for him. Kirara next. Kirara, honestly, I think she's a weak human. I don't really see her in combat too much, and most of her story is being an Amazon delivery girl. She just delivers packages for Chiori and just around the world, mostly in Inazuma as well. Yeah, I think she's just a little Amazon girl. She's similar to Fischl in that case, where she just kind of does her job and tries to avoid combat as much as possible. Next, we have Karibart's father, which, if you didn't know, he is the leader and the creator of the Abyss, and he actually knows who Lumine is, like our sister, because he worked alongside with our sister to create the Abyss. And also is the great grandfather of Kaya. So he's old as hell, and he's dead, but he was crazy. Yeah, but he's a pretty intense character. Unfortunately, he is a weak human. He's not insanely strong, but he is very crazy, and because of that, I don't consider him fodder. I think he's crazy enough to be able to literally strangle any of these characters' necks and kill them for the sake of his son and his wife. Next, we have Apep, a dragon, a former dragon sovereign, one of the original gods of Teyvat prior to Celestia. Now, I think before Celestia's involvement, I would probably consider this dragon to be sovereign level, but I think over time and due to erosion, you know, being constantly in dormant, I think they've decreased down to lower Archon tier. I still think they're really strong because the Traveler had to be very careful against them and had to team up with Nahida to be able to fight off against Apep, which reminded me of the Scaramouche fight, which makes me think that they are quite similar in strength, the Scaramouche mech and Apep. So I'm gonna put Apep in the lower Archon tier. And finally, we are at the second to last region, Fontaine, because after Fontaine we have Natlan. But we don't really know the characters in Natlan, so I'm just gonna based on what I've seen in the trailer of where they would rank. So this is effectively the last region for the most part. Next, we have Lini. Lini is a member of the Fatui. He is quite strong, but not as strong as a Harbinger. In my opinion, I think he is a tier or two below the Harbingers. If I was to honestly rate him somewhere, I would put him in the superhuman category. I still think he's weaker to the Pinocchio elf Harbinger, but I do think he's stronger than the average Fatui member, which would be around strong human or peak human. So I definitely do think Lini, actually no, I would put Lini in peak human. 100%, But yeah, I would put Liyue in peak human because he is definitely stronger than the average Fatui member, but he is not superhuman. He does get his ass beat by a lot of characters, but he does put in a good shift, considering he is not a Harbinger. Next, we have Lynette, who is similar to Liyue in terms of their role in the Fatui. But I would put Lynette one tier below Liyue. I think Liyue possesses more combat prowess than Lynette, mainly because in Arlecchino's story quest, Arlecchino believes that Liyue is going to be the next House of Hearts leader, and that makes me believe that Liyue at some point will ascend to one of these higher tiers in the far future after Arlecchino's time, which makes me want to place him higher than Lynette. Then we have Fremene. Despite being an older member of the House of Hearth, they are not blood brothers. I do think Fremene is the same strength and rank as Lynette. I think these two are in the same rank, while Liyue is one tier above them. Next, we have the Melusines, another really cute NPC. You know, they're similar to the Arenara, but for the Fontaine region. They got their own lore and story, and they're really adorable and they're really cute. And a lot of people love them because they have a unique model. So I thought I'd include them, but unfortunately, they are also similar to Seelies and Arenaras. They are fodder. Next, we have Neuvillette. So during the Fontaine quest, a lot of people speculated that he was a dragon based on his eyes and his way of mannerisms and speech. Literally the next quest after, when we got his character story quest, he straight up tells you that he is the dragon of Fontaine. He is the Hydro Dragon of Fontaine. So Apep is the Hydro Dragon, the Dendro Dragon of Sumeru. The Valen is the Anemo Dragon of Mondstadt. So they are their own respective dragon deities for the regions. Now, Neuvillette, fun fact, was actually nerfed really hard in the beginning of the story. Like, he was already really strong. He one-shotted Child, like Tartaglia, a Harbinger. He one-shotted him, literally jumped on him and pounded him into the fucking ground with one hit. Man took one beating and just died. He was nerfed to the ground. But at the end of the Fontaine story, when the whole story was unveiled and you learn the entire history of Fontaine, you find out every citizen of Fontaine is actually an oceanid, a water being. They're not human. They're just water beings to be morphed into humans because of a curse. But then the curse was lifted, but somebody had to die and sacrificing themselves to break the curse. But as soon as the curse was broken, another curse was broken. The curse on the dragons. So Neuvillette regained his full power and became the most OP motherfucker that we have seen directly, and became the strongest character in the story who has shown his power, because we have actually seen him throw hands. He's broken. He's really strong. He's probably the single-hand reason why Fontaine is not being fucked with by anyone. He can literally just show up to someone's door and just be like, what the fuck, motherfucker? And only like 2 people so far on the list right now would be able to ever actually do anything to him. All these little motherfuckers would have to work really fucking hard to beat him, and he would still probably come out on top. So he is hella strong. Sovereign level. He is literally called the Dragon Sovereign. So the Sovereign level is basically for him, which is why he's on this part of the list. Next, we have Riothesli. So the reason why I hesitated to put Liyue in the superhuman tier list is because Riothesli whooped his ass when Liyue got upset because he thought Riothesli killed or incapacitated his sister while they were infiltrating the Meropidi fortress, like the prison underwater. He's the warden, by the way, of the prison. Liyue started attacking him and he got his ass beat by Riothesli. Riothesli threw hands at him and just fucked him up. Liyue had no chance whatsoever. Like, he literally got his ass beat by Riothesli. Yeah, that is why I ended up putting Liyue in this tier and Riothesli goes above him, because he single-handedly got defeated. So really cool. Next, we have Furina. So Furina, everyone thought Furina was the legitimate Hydro Archon for Fontaine. But as you unveil through the story, you learn that she is actually not a real Hydro Archon. Her doppelganger was the real Hydro Archon, or you can consider her her mother. Basically, Farina is a clone of the previous Hydro Archon. Basically gave birth to her, and the previous Hydro Archon sealed herself to kill herself 500 years later, but she didn't tell Farina anything other than you have to pretend you're the Hydro Archon. If anyone ever finds out you're the Hydro Archon, you, me, and everyone will die. So Farina is a normal human. She's a normal human. She has no powers, she has no skills, no nothing. She's just a normal human who has to pretend she's a little Archon up here. But it is revealed that she is just a normal person who was under stress for 500 years and had to pretend and lie who she was. And it ended up fucking her so much to the point where she got crazy and she developed addictions to things, became severely depressed. Like, her entire mental was shattered and she was immortal. She lived for over 500 years as a normal human. It fucked with her so much, to the point it nearly made her crack. And then she did crack and it was very depressing, but she needed to crack and lose her mind for everything to happen. And eventually everything good happened, but she became depressed because she lost her occupation. She no longer had to be the Hydro Archon, but that's all she did for her entire life. So she had no purpose. Now she's just left alone to figure out what she wants to do for the rest of her life. And she's slowly figuring it out, but you can clearly see that she's depressed, lonely, awkward, and doesn't know what the fuck to do. She's broken and she's slowly healing, which is why she's a really cool character. She's a genuine human character, just trying her best to live in a terrible society that was forced upon her on her birth. But she is a normal human and she has no combat prowess. She's literally scared of everything, and she had a fear of death since her birth. For 500 years, she was afraid of dying. Next, we have the Narwhal, which was one of the scary. Honestly, I was scared of this boss. When we saw this boss show up for the first time and I heard the sounds it was making, it literally shook me. It scared me. Like, genuinely, it scared me. It was a very scary entity, and when you learn more and more about it and the impeding death that it provided, it was pretty intense. This Narwhal single-handedly could have killed everybody in Fontaine by itself. It was literally eating Fontaine, eating it. But thankfully, Neuvillette acquired his full power and was just able to fucking one-shot this beast. Literally just took care of him by himself. We helped in quotations, but not really. We just kind of distracted it while he just charged up and just shot him once. We are definitely nowhere near strong this Narwhal. Neuvillette is hella strong. The reason why I'm putting the Narwhal here and not here is because Tartaglia was actually able to hold off the Narwhal in the Primordial Sea and not let it escape for like roughly 3 months. Like, he did a really good job of holding him back. So that is why I don't think these two are too far off in terms of power from each other, but he definitely cannot beat him. And I think the Narwhal was mostly playing with him as well. So I think these two are roughly in the same power level in comparison to the Narwhal. We might be slightly stronger than Tartaglia because main character privileges, but in terms of lore, I think we're roughly in the same power range right now. He's done a really good job of training himself. We've been pretty stagnating and pretty slow in terms of our improvement since over here in Liyue, but you know, over time we should hopefully at least get back to sovereign level where our sister belongs. Next we have Skark, which probably one of the hottest characters in the game. She looks like Jing Liu from Star Rail. She's actually the master and the one who taught Child back when he got thrown into the abyss. It is heavily implied that her master is actually one of the strongest, if not the strongest character in all of Genshin. She easily can take care of this this Narwhal by herself. Like, easily can take care of it by herself. She literally picked up Tartaglia like a wet used napkin and then yeeted him into a portal really fucking far with no effort against a god level character. Like, she is really strong, and the crazy part is there's somebody even stronger than her master. So, and when she talked to Neuvillette, it seemed like she could honestly fight Neuvillette and possibly beat him. I think Neuvillette would actually put up a decent fight against her, but I don't believe they would ever fight because I think they share sort of a mutual understanding between these two characters. So I'm gonna put her in Sovereign level tier. She could potentially be Celestia, but then that would imply that her master is a tier above Celestia. But we haven't really seen how strong Celestia is, let alone Piero, this character. So, or the full extent of Lumine. So it's kind of hard to guesstimate between the two. But if I was to put her somewhere, I would definitely put her up here, either here or in the upper Archon tier. She's definitely in between these two areas. All right, next we have Charlotte. A literal reporter. I think she's a weak human. I think she could probably do a good job of kicking Paimon, which wouldn't make her fodder. But yeah, she's just a reporter. Next we have the Hydro Eidolon, which is a very cute and semi-popular NPC that you find in the Fontaine world. It's a water droplet monster. If I was to put this somewhere, I would definitely put it around the strong human category. I think it's about as strong as a Whopper Flower or Ruin Guard. It is quite somewhat dangerous and strong, but I don't think they're too crazily strong. I think they're the equivalent of these characters in their respective regions. Navia next. Navia is a very interesting character because she's a very well fleshed out character. She's very, very, very human. She goes through so much depression. Like, honestly, Fontaine is the arc of depression. It is very depressing what they all go through, and it's amazing how much she pulled through and was able to become the amazing person she is. However, although she is the girl boss of a mafia gang, she's unfortunately not super strong. She's quite strong, but she's not that strong. She's more strength in numbers and not individuality. So I'm gonna put her in strong tier. I think it's a pretty solid space or spot for her. Yeah, I don't think she's too necessarily as strong as the other characters, because those characters tend to focus more on combat all the time, while Navia is more a blend between combat, reconstruction, and fashion, and friendships, and a little bit of drama. So she's kind of living her best life, while these guys are mostly just narrowing down in their one or two talents, and or are just naturally gifted and strong, hence why they would be considered these tiers. Next we have Chevrusi. I want to say Chevrusi is similar to Navia in terms of strength. She is a police person. I think she's the police captain guard or something like that. I think she's like a captain or something. So she definitely has to be strong, and she's quite good in terms of artillery. And she does see her fair share of action as well, and catching criminals. And then we did see her skill in her event quest. I think she's barely a strong human. If I was to really put her somewhere, I would put her in between human and strong human. But I'm gonna lean more towards strong human because I feel like she's put in enough effort into her day job to deserve that spot. And I do kind of see her and Navia in terms of equals in terms of power. Next we have Shin Yun, a literal adepti. One of the few adepti that actually donned a human form and got a unique model for it. And she's a very old and popular character from way back when. She is the mother of Ganyu and Shenhe, essentially, raising them both. I actually think she is a threat to humanity. I don't think she's stronger than Shenhe. I think Shenhe is actually stronger than her. But I think with her expertise and knowledge and her vast experience of living for like thousands of years, I think she is a threat to humanity. Next we have Gaming, a wushu dancer, carries a claymore, has a little lion pet. He's kind of cool, but unfortunately he is just your generic everyday. Actually, he's a strong human. I was gonna put him in human, but then I remembered his occupation. He's actually a mercenary, and that's how he got a lot of knowledge, and that's where he makes his money. He's actually a hired mercenary. I don't think he's peak human, but I definitely do think he's average. He's stronger than the average person, which would be considered normal human. So I will put him in the strong human category to indicate that he's stronger than the average human, but he's not super powerful. Next we have Chiori. She is shown to have combat prowess. She is shown to also have skill in swordsmanship, receiving praise from Ayaka and Ayato, and was actually a friend of Ayaka when they were kids. She is quite strong, and she is very short-tempered and very blunt with her words, which I love. However, I don't think she practices in the art of swordsmanship anymore, or as much as Ayaka does, because she's focusing more on fashion and being the #1 fashion boutique in all of the world. So I think she's focusing more on chasing her dreams, so she's definitely stronger than the average human. Hence, when we did her quest, she literally grabbed a guy by her collar and threw him out of his house because he was making lies and shit and, you know, fucking with her. And she does not take care of fucking. She does not want to be fucked with. We're going to put her in the strong human tier. Next, we have Arlecchino. Possibly my favorite character design in all of Genshin. Arlecchino was what really put into perspective of how strong these harbingers can be. I'm really struggling between upper Archon and lower Archon for Arlecchino, to be honest. Arlecchino is 100% stronger than the Traveler. Like, we had no chance against her, like no chance whatsoever, which makes me want to put her here. But I think Arlecchino is lower Archon tier, because I think Arlecchino herself says, in terms of strength to the top 3 of Fatui, she's nowhere, she's not near them. She is not near them in terms of power. So, which makes me think that she belongs here. But how soundingly she beat us makes me think she's here. So it's between here. I would probably put her in the middle, but I don't have that here. So we're gonna put her in the lower, but she's like very fucking close to being up here. Next, we have Caribert, the once human child boy that got turned into a hilly troll, ripped his mask off after realizing he turned into a monster, went batshit crazy, and then eventually was able to be a human temporarily in the world of memories, and was able to reunite us temporarily with our sister and told us to both behave and be friends with each other again. He's a very sweetheart, and I genuinely thought he was going to be an asshole, but unfortunately he was a sweetheart. He is a weak human. He was a spirit, and he was mostly a memory, but he did control a lot of magical power, which did make him really cool. But unfortunately, he was a spectral spirit. He only lived on in memories, so he had no physical body. But despite that, he was able to shape and affect the real world with his memories, which makes him quite strong. But unfortunately, in terms of power scales, memories can only do so much, because if you're getting bashed in the face, you're just gonna die. Next, we have Chlorined. So Chlorined, I actually was really struggling in the back of my head where to place her, because a part of me wants to place her in threat to humanity because she is quite strong, but the other half of me wants to put her in superhuman. I do think Chlorined is very strong, especially when you do her story quest. You learn about how she's a Marachuse hunter. However, a part of me thinks Chlorined is stronger than Rio Thesli, but when you see them together in their story quest, they kind of are synonymous together. Like, they're seen together, which makes me think they're equals to each other in terms of power. But she's more of the forefront in terms of power. She's the duelist champion. She's the one that handles the execution. She's the one that literally beheads and kills people if they are found guilty in court. So yeah, I'm gonna put her in superhuman. Yeah, after saying that out loud, I think these two are meant to seem equal in strength to each other, if not Chlorine slightly above, but we'll put them together for now. Next, we have the cute little Melusine, the first ever playable Melusine, which is Sujuini, which I hope you guys remember, because we recently did a quest where we played as her and did our story quest, which is actually surprisingly depressing. She is a weak human. As we saw in the story quest when we did it, she says she's capable of taking care of enemies, but she doesn't necessarily do that, but she can if she has to. So, weak human. So similar to Fischl, I can fight if they have to, but preferably would play the support role. Next, we have Sethos, which was roughly as strong as Senno, if not a little bit weaker than Senno, but after he had to give up half of his powers to Senno, I think it puts him unfortunately back down to peak human. I think he's strong, but after losing his elemental power, his half of the version of the god to Senno, I think it pushed him down from, because before I would consider Senno Harbinger tier, and then gaining the other half pushed him up to divine tier, which would make Senno in the superhuman category, while Senno was here. Hence why Senno was able to win and then climb up here. Wait, did I have a mirror? No, I had a mirror. But after Sethos ended up losing, To Senno, I think he is just a strong or peak human now. Okay, next we have Emily. A new character. We don't know too much about her, but based on her Wikipedia, she seems to be a fragrant person. You know, a person that deals with perfumes and stuff like that, which is kind of cool, but yeah, we don't know too much about her. So if I was to guess where she would be based on her Wikipedia description, I'm gonna put her in the human tier. I think she's just your average Joe. She's just doing her best. Okay, now we have a bunch of the new Natlan characters, which we know nothing about. So honestly, we're just gonna have to go based on first impressions and what their official introductions introduced. So the first one we have here is Mwalani. Her introduction says, "There's not a spot in the world of Natlan this girl couldn't reach if she wanted to. So why does she come asking if it's an auspicious day for an outing every single time? Oh well, now that I have read her fortunes for a whole decade in advance, I finally have some peace and quiet." So based on her splash art, it looks like she's a surfer, you know, cowabunga sort of outgoing girl, which makes me think she's more of a civilian and not much of a fighter. So if I was to put her in a category, I would put her in the I would put her in the human category. I think she's just your average schmuck. I think she's just your average person, similar to Amber. I think she's like the equivalent of Amber in the new region in terms of her role. But we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Okay, next we have Kachina, which is a little girl that is driving a Roomba with a stick. I didn't think I would ever say that sentence out loud. She's a Geo character. Not long after we met, I saw Kachina crying and tried to hand her a handkerchief, but smiling back, she said to me, "Don't worry, I'll wipe my own tears away." That was a moment I'll always remember. So don't you worry about her either. The girl's made of strong stuff. Just make sure you give her all the encouragement she needs. It seems like she's a supportive character, and most of the supports that we have in this category tend to be in the weak human category, so we're gonna put her in the weak human category, not think too much about it. Okay, next we have Kinich, a playable Dendro character in Genshin. In my opinion, possibly the coolest character behind the Pyro Archon. His introduction says, "This servant of mine is no fool, and nimble too. As far as servants go, his biggest fault is that no matter how hard you try, you simply can't get rid of him. I mean it. He literally will not die. Have you ever heard of someone falling headfirst off a cliff and still surviving? Utterly infuriating." Okay, so it seems like he's a very dense and strong person, which would automatically cross out the bottom three. So he would either be a peak human or a strong human. Based on that introduction, it doesn't seem like he's insanely strong. He just seems to be very dense and well built. So we're gonna put him in the strong category. Next we have this Natlan lady, which I actually don't know the name of. She's your cat mama, hot character. I'm gonna put her in the human category because I don't really know much about her, to be honest. So yeah. Next we have the little person with the skull on the hat. This character actually was teased very early on during one of the very first Genshin trailers ever, where they tease every single region and one character from each respective region. And this character was teased like 5 years ago. So we've known about this character for 5 years. They've gone a huge character design change because they looked a lot more intimidating in the trailer from 5 years ago to what they look like now. They look a little just a bit more cartoonified and cute, which is kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. It's probably easier to mold it that way or design the character in game that way. Don't really know much about the character. Although we know that I think they're a Claymore user and possibly a race of the dragons, which makes me think that they possibly have some level of strength as a dragon, but since they're a little baby, you know, they're a short little guy, I'm gonna put them in the human tier because they might be stronger than the average person for their age, which would put them in the average category, but we don't know too much. Next we have this thing with, I think it's a cat, the pink cat character. I don't really remember this character, to be honest. don't really know much about her, so I mean, we're gonna put her in the human category because she looks like she could probably kick Paimon in the face and kill her if she kicked hard enough. So probably could snap her neck. So we're just gonna put her in a human tier. Next we have this guy right here, which he actually looked really cool. I actually personally want him. I really like his design. He kind of gives me like all Hytham furry vibes. Like he's a furry all Hytham. So very cool. He's got a bunch of tattoos. He looks like an older version of Kinich, which is this guy right here. He just looks like an older version of it. Might be his brother, who knows. He looks pretty intimidating. He kind of gives me all Hytham vibes, which makes me want to put him in peak human category, but because we don't actually know how strong they are, I'm gonna put them here. And then this hot mama character is probably the second hottest character in Natlan, only behind, of course, the Pyro Archon, who I think is number 1. But she's really cool. She's really pretty. She kind of reminds me of Melania with her color scheme, with the way her helmet is and her red hair, and her golden armor and the trimmings, which I'm getting Melania flashbacks. Yeah, so she reminds me of Melania. So if she's any strong as Melania, it would probably put her in peak human, maybe superhuman category. But we don't know. But because of PTSD, I'm gonna put her in the superhuman category because she reminds me of Melania. And then last but not least, the Pyro Archon herself. The one that looks like a biker. The one whose design I thought was the coolest in a very long time we've seen in Genshin. I'm gonna put her in the lower Archon tier because she's not one of the original 7. So I don't believe that she has the same level of strength as these 3 characters. However, she is shown to be crossing paths with Capitano. So there is a possibility that she actually might be the strongest Archon, which would put her in the Sovereign tier, possibly Celestia. I doubt that, but probably in Sovereign at least. So there is a potential for that. Because we don't know whether she could be a Sovereign tier as strong as Capitano. We don't even know if Capitano is going to be that strong. And I don't think she's as strong as the original 7. Hence, because she was born after, and I don't think she acquired as much strength, training, or wisdom to reach their level, but she could potentially have. Who knows? And realistically, it makes sense to put her in the lower Archon tier. I'm gonna put her in the lower Archon tier because I don't think she's as strong as the original 7 of those 3 characters. I think she has the potential to be up there, obviously, because she is an Archon herself. But I think she has to earn that right, and we will see once Natlan gets released for us in Genshin version 5.0. So, after 5 hours, we have finally finished the tier list that I thought was going to take me 2 hours. My throat genuinely hurts right now, so I'm going to take a lozenge and drink lots of water. But this is our tier list, our final tier list. So this is the final tier list, ranking 120 plus Genshin characters in a power scale tier list. I think this is quite an accurate tier list in relationship to the characters' strength lore wise. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye now.